That's what I'm talking about. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Adventures in Middle-earth, Wilderland Adventures, Episode 2, as we begin Of Leaves and Stewed Hobbit. That's right, I said it. I thought I got it wrong before. I thought it was of stewed leaves and Hobbit, but it is actually Of Leaves and Stewed Hobbit. And I don't know whether that's supposed to mean anything for the long-term circumstances of our party, but we will see. It is welcome to all of you guys. I hope everyone's doing well on Tuesday, September 26th, as we are ready to get back into Adventures in Middle-earth, the Tolkien campaign, and I am very excited about that. Before we do that, a couple of reminders about ways that you can support the stream. If you haven't already done so, please consider following the stream. Please consider following the channel. Please consider checking out the Steam group with exclamation point Steam group, the YouTube with exclamation point ArvTube, please make sure to retweet the stream with exclamation point CTT. Please make sure to check out as I am searching desperately for the cover. There we go. Please make sure to check out I think I already said the YouTube and everything else, the Discord with exclamation point Discord. If you haven't done so already, please consider supporting the Patreon with exclamation point ArvTreon. There's a lot of cool things that will come out of that, both for you individually and for the channel as a whole. We want to get north of 400 and head back up again. I should say, by the way, that remember, at the $10 support level, you guys get an inspiration that you can give to the players, and at the $20 level, you actually get 2 inspirations per month that you can give the players, not just in this campaign, but in my other D&D campaigns that I do over at GOG or D&D with viewers, or the Infinity and Beyond campaign, which you're going to see more of on Friday. So all of that is a possibility and awaits you if you were able to do that and support it, and we are very much appreciative if you can. But today we are continuing with Wilderland Adventures in Middle-earth, and I want to thank everyone who is here to get this started, and I want to thank the official sponsor, of course, which is Cubicle 7, who is the official sponsor of this campaign, and thank them as we continue on with the adventure as we move into the next chapter of this adventure. So I'm going to unmute them. Let's see, I'm going to unmute
Well, I have no idea.
I'm going to unmute them here so they can hear that I'm talking. And then I'm going to jump right over here. Dun, 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 dun.
It's a pretty cool kind of thing that you get when you're watching like behind the scenes documentary footage of stuff, and you learn things like that. It's what do you want?
There we go. I was wondering, I figured I would just let you guys know. I was wondering as I was looking at this why this didn't look right. And then I realized I didn't have the right overlay up, and now I do. So now everything's fine. And there are my wonderful players who are prepared to regale all of you with their awesomeness, and I'm super excited to bring them back into the fold. You will notice that there are only 3 of them today, and that is because, as we know, Lauren unfortunately has had to move on because of a job conflict, and we wish her very well in that job conflict. But the good news is that we've got our crew back, and we are going to have a 4th person at our next session in October, and I have another possible surprise as far as a guest star maybe even that will be joining in, but I don't want to talk about that yet until I have everything completely confirmed, other than to say that it's on the way, so stay tuned.
Do they play the lute? There.
I can't tell you that because it would give it all away.
That's true.
I don't want to do that. But let me bring in all of the wonderful players who are here. Everyone recovered from various injuries, internet travails, and things like that. And I will start with the voice actor extraordinaire, good friend of the channel, right below us, and that is, of course, the inimitable Trendane, who did not have any scramble panic. He was awake well in time today, so
like
you should be
4 hours.
Yeah, you were in good shape. I felt so bad about it.
Just say that.
Gotta do that, you know.
Say that.
Well, okay. Certainly in time. So how are you, Trent? How's life, etc.?
A little crazy. A little bit. I finally got some money in because I was down to like $23 in my bank account. And I'm like, I know my car insurance payment is coming up and my cell phone payment is coming up, and either one of those alone will send me into overdraft. And oh my God, what am I gonna? And then I got a check from the oh so lovely George Ledoux. I'm like, oh thank God. So I threw that in the bank, and I'm like, okay, I'm all right now for a little while.
And if I can just say, I will not, of course, spoil any confidences, but I will say that if all goes well, Trent will be getting more of these things soon. There is stuff in the works that he and I can't talk about, but I'm super excited about it on his behalf. So
yeah, I am too. Anyway,
yes. So who are you playing and all that, dude?
I am playing Tonnebear the Hearthminder, who is a Beorning, big, huge gigantic. It's 3 synonyms, whatever. Guy who was very angry all the time, but eventually learned, hey, wait a minute. I can just relax and be peaceful and just spend all my time cooking for other people and making them feel better. That's so much more comforting to my soul. And
Did you get like any smoking stuff from Hobbits, or what? What did
you know, maybe on occasion, you know, but
started listening to the Doors a lot.
Yeah.
Robar is just sitting there with fire. All of a sudden, he's like dun 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 dun.
Oh, those Doors.
I'm gonna love you. Yeah.
So he just sits there and plays the. Never mind. And so, as I usually do on Blades in the Dark, I will take this ball and I'm going to drop it down to the next person in the stack. You ready to catch down there?
I am ready to catch a ball.
Woo! Down it goes.
There we go. Hey, everybody.
The power of the internet. Hi, Will. Will has internet, everybody.
Yeah, holy shit. No, I've had a sojourn away from the internet for a week or two, so that's been pretty painful for me. But finally back now in Montreal, Canada, and hanging out here in a Frenchman's basement who occasionally comes and takes my trash. Oh, how the mighty!
Out of the Frenchman's basement.
Is that a euphemism? For
I was like, please. It's clearly a metaphor.
No.
It's clearly a metaphor.
Yeah, this is rock bottom. No, it's really nice here actually, but I highly recommend it.
They give me bread and water twice a day.
Maybe you can get down to a Frenchman's basement.
I don't know. It's a baguette, though. They give you a baguette and water.
Right.
Club any intruders. Go wham!
No, but of course, Will,
Yes.
it's good to have you back on. And as far as an Encounter RP has got, dude, every time I turn around, all I see is just my Twitter feed is mostly writers, people, freaking out / celebrating that we haven't voted to take 30 million Americans off of healthcare yet. Mm-hmm. And then like Will and Encounter roleplay. Like today we got noticed by President Barack Obama for being the best D&D stream in the history of recorded time.
I'm working on the Obama. The family.
I want Obama on your D&D set. If you get Obama to play D&D, like at that point you win all things. I just want
when I interviewed Ed Greenwood, he said that he'd really like to play with D&D. Again, D&D with Barack Obama. I said, we got to make this happen.
Can you imagine?
Greenwood.
Oh my God.
Obama.
The best. Oh man.
Incredible. But anyway, yeah, I'll be playing Robar Staunton. He's a Dunedain Ranger. And long blonde hair, long walks along the beach, getting attacked by tentacle creatures.
So it matches Will's physical characteristics.
Very similar, yeah. Slightly apathetic about children, so tick. He is along for the ride, and honestly, I've forgotten a little bit about what happened last episode, but I remember we came to a village, there was the axe thingy. Yeah, it's all come back. Perfect. I will throw my ball down to Tari. 3, 2, 1. Oh god! Oh god! What have I done?
Get on her head.
Until we're back to a full team, you're not allowed to kill players. Okay, we need to wait.
Drop the rock on her face.
Hi, I am Taritunes or Britta or whatever. I'm playing a dwarven wanderer named Inge, daughter of Ida, and she does stuff with stone when she's not like trying to kill spiders or horribly failing at hunting black pheasants. Basically.
and did you?
There's not much more to say at this point.
Did you mention professional cartoonist? Extraordinary.
I do occasionally pretend to be.
No big deal.
No big deal. It's not anything. Yes. Terry is a very talented cartoonist that, of course, people are familiar with. And it is great to have her back on. And as I said, that fourth spot all the way down below will soon be occupied. We will be introducing that person, hopefully, at the very next session in October. We were supposed to have 2 sessions this month, but we had unavoidable circumstances of both headaches and internet problems and things like that. So we are all back here and reassembled, which is very exciting. I do want to mention that we did get an invitation, a short invitation, an introduction Short one from X5, Echo Alpha X5, who says, of Leaves and Stewed Hobbits, the Wilderland Adventures continues. Day 6 of Adventures Middle-earth is on. After a little detour through the Yellow Woods on the road, yeah, we return. We venture forth, but we spread the word of the month that is subbed, as it is still September. That's true, I didn't mention that. It's till October 2nd you can subscribe at a 50% discount. Do so, there is still time. X5 speaks the truth. But let us say no more and continue onwards. Adventures, mysteries, within Middle-earth, and don't forget to check out Terry Toons for her cartoon and illustrations. And then he puts the following link right here, which is the link where we were doing Fighting Fantasy Legends, and I talked up Terry a lot. So you guys should definitely check that out. Thank you, X5, as always, for the epic introduction. We appreciate it. And yes, we are continuing on today with episode 2. To quickly summarize, these folks just finished episode 1, which was called Don't Leave the Path, where they were able to successfully escort Belgo and Baldur, the merchant, actually Baldur and Belgo, the merchant and his son, respectively, through Mirkwood to the other side. They managed to do so despite the fact that there were rifts and problems, psychological issues with Belgo and his father. His father got webbed by spiders after falling into an enchanted stream. Our party of intrepid adventurers managed to rescue them at great personal risk to themselves. Then this thing in the well, which is all they know it as, this random tentacled thing, basically had some psychological hold over the creatures of the forest near where it was, and ended up bringing Belgo into its clutches, rather literally, actually. But thanks to bravery and some successful rappelling down wells and some well-placed axe attacks at the right moments from various party members and the like, and Robar, I was watching the video from this just in preparation for this, and I was reminded again of Robar's, grabbing him and then Gimli style, rappelling up the wall as he was doing it. So thanks to all of that and the party working together, they were able to save them and get them to the other side of Mirkwood, whereupon they were brought down, or they went down with Baldur originally to Woodland Hall, because one of the things that they discovered during this adventure was an ancient and famous axe blade of a weapon called Wolfbiter, which was given to them by a strange, somewhat apparently not sane hermit who had given it to Tawny Bear. What? I was trying to be, political,
I know. I'm just sitting there. No, Ben lives out beyond the Dune Sea. He's kind of a strange old hermit.
Yeah, he's strange old hermit. He does definitely Obi-Wan, yeah. But he did give Tawny Bear actually the axe blade. I should say that the axe blade, which was almost lost to the same thing in the well, but they did manage to retrieve it, and they went down to Woodland Hall, where they gave it to the woodman there, who swore fealty to them and opened up Woodland Hall as a sanctuary to them, which is helpful because it means they've got two of them now. They've got Lake Town and they've got Woodland Hall as potential sanctuaries, which may become necessary as the adventures become more difficult and more drawn out. So that's something which will be useful to them later on. Also, Inga was able to get her armor refashioned, basically improved and repaired by a smith who seemed to be slightly enamored of her, but she just a touch.
There may have been some vague vibes going on.
Yeah, there was a little bit of chemistry, which was completely on his side entirely. But in any case, fixing.
No, Inga was totally into it.
Yeah, sure. Inga was definitely a fan. So that was completed, and then at the very end of our adventure, Robar was sitting in the tavern, basically thinking about the adventures that had happened when a hobbit came up to him in the tavern in the area of Woodland Hall and basically explained to him that there were problems with this inn of a friend of his and that they somehow involved goblins. That was the cliffhanger on which we ended our last adventure. And so as we begin today, I'm going to, through the power of space and time, advance us forward a couple of months. Because remember that in a fellowship phase, this is not just a day or two, this is actually a month or two that we're talking about. And so the party has been able to rest. Inga has a very nice new shiny suit of dwarven armor, which
Well,
is...
he just repaired my old one.
Well, but when we say repair, I mean, he detailed it, okay, is what he did. Like, there's flames out the side. And no, I'm just kidding. He didn't do that. But he did make it very,
Shiny
very
black
shiny.
red flames.
Well, and in a way, Inga, you were maybe slightly troubled by how shiny. Like, there's like extra chrome work that he did, and like you're not entirely clear whether this
Took
was
the
all.
muffler out.
Yeah, like I mean,
It's got subwoofer in it.
he put like Oakley thermonuclear protection bumper sticker on it with like, you know, he really, yeah. He pimped
It's
his armor.
insured,
Exactly
yeah.
right. It was, it's insured.
It says R-type on both
TV
butt
system.
cheeks.
Yeah, it says R-type. Yeah, exactly. She actually bounces on hydraulics, so like the, you know, Inga just bounces up and down as she walks now.
So she's now like a -16 to all stealth rolls.
Yes, but the benefit is that she's much harder to
Writing that
hit
down.
when they actually
We're
hit her
gonna
because
get
she's
back
always.
to that.
Yeah, exactly. So, no, but he did do that. And Tawny Bear was given a set of basically a set of earthenware jars of fine honey. The advantage of being at Woodland Hall is that you're not all that far from some of Bjorn's more farther flung bee fields, and so you were able to get some very high quality honey, which was important because as the time begins, we are actually moving into early autumn. In fact, this is very appropriate that we're doing this now because this is basically the exact month in the game. It's about September-ish. And so we're starting to, summer is still kind of, you know, has not given up its grasp entirely, but we're on the way basically. So that's the case that he got those, he's going to need that food as time goes forward. And Robar, this discussion that you had with, what's up, Tren? Are you hearing sounds?
You're hearing voices.
I hear the
think
car alarm.
Yeah, I think the garbage truck may have just sheared the side of someone's car off.
Boo, boo, boo,
Just-
boo.
well, no, it was the sound before that.
God,
It
no,
was the sound of the
stop
garbage
it.
truck going, and then
Oh no.
and then the car alarm going off, and I was like,
Well, I can't actually pretend that that's part of the mix,
No.
you know. And so you hear the sound of a car alarm on your horse, and okay, I can't do that. But yeah, so Robar, you had this discussion with this Hobbit, and what you discovered was he didn't know a lot of the details himself, except that he had been sent by no uncertain speed, like, you know, do it as fast as possible, to find a group of people that could help. And the person who had sent him was a man named Dindy Brandybuck. This Brandybuck guy runs an inn. I'm sorry, not Dindy. Not Dindy. Dodie, I beg your pardon. D-O-D-Y. Dodie Brandybuck, who runs an inn called the Easterly Inn. And I'm going to move us over here on the Roll20 to show
what does
you
Dodie
guys.
stand for?
Dodie is, I actually have that for you. I actually have what that
It's
is.
relative to what we were talking about before this stream. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, not
He's
Dodie. It actually is short for Dodinus.
Oh.
Dodinus Brandybuck is what it stands for. But I'm going to move us over here. So this Easterly Inn, let's see if I can put it here. Yeah. So you guys are over at the Woodland Hall, or you were over at the Woodland Hall, which was a considerable distance. Here, before I move you guys over, let me move everybody over to take a look at this map first. So you guys, if you look at the Wilderland Adventures map, you guys were at Woodland Hall, which is right here. And
Right out there.
you were right here.
I thought we took the northern road.
I thought we
all
did
the way
too.
down there?
You did take the northern road, but then you went south to the Woodland Hall. You may remember that you had gone down south a fair bit of the way, actually, to go to Woodland Hall to make this your sanctuary, which is one of the reasons why like weeks and months of travel, basically. It didn't take months to get there, but the point is, like, there was some travel even involved in getting to the Woodland Hall in the first place. And so you've been sort of spending time there. And now you're being asked to go. Now I'll bring you guys over to this. Players are here now. To here. I'm going to zoom in so you guys have no context. Okay, no. There we go.
Oh,
Here you go. You can see nothing. Okay. So you guys should now be able to see that you're being asked to go here, which is the Easterly Inn. And you'll note that that is pretty close to the Forest Gate. The same Forest Gate that was sort of the main Forest Gate, the main road into Mirkwood, which has fallen into disrepair and disuse. But it's the basic idea about where it is that you're supposed to be going. And the Easterly Inn is right near there, and the Hobbit in question was not able to tell you, Robar, a whole lot, except to say that it dealt with goblins, and it dealt with things that were of particular interest to, as he told you, a particular friend of Mr. Bilbo Baggins. And so he repeated that phrase very often, expecting you to be impressed, apparently, because he brought it up quite a bit. He's like, this is a particular friend of Mr. Bilbo Baggins. And so after some discussion and after you guys had gotten all your sort of goods and everything set together, you set out at least to find out what's going on at the Easterly Inn. It also happens to be somewhat heading back in the direction of if you wanted to get back to Lake Town at some point, to go there as well. So that was basically the idea as to why you were doing it. And so you headed back in that direction. And so as our episode begins, as we start episode 2, you are just now closing in on that area. The Easterly Inn is situated near a little brook that flows out of Mirkwood towards the Great River. And the Great River is the river that's right behind the Easterly Inn over here. Two rivers actually meet and then form the Great River, which runs south. And the Great River is known for being deep and wild. It is not easy to cross. Inga, you in particular know that dwarves have never been a fan of this river. Dwarves don't like water anyway because they have a deep dread of drowning. But the Great River in particular has some sort of legend about it that there is danger to be found in that river because of how fast and quickly it moves. And not to put too fine a point on it, it's like 3 times your height. So there's that also. But it moves really quickly. And so one of the brooks that feeds that river is situated right near this Easterly Inn. And there is a small stone bridge that arches over the babbling waters, and just beyond that stands the inn. And as you guys are coming up to it, if I can find where I put my introduction. As you guys are coming up to it, it is heading towards dark. It's probably about 7 o'clock, 7:30 at night, so it's getting dark rapidly. But the lights of the Easterly Inn shine with a warm, welcoming light in the gloom as you approach. It is late summer, as I said, but the dusk air has a chill in it that sort of heralds the changing of the seasons. And as you get close, you can actually hear some sounds from the inside. I think. Maybe give me my tavern sound. How about perhaps I should unmute it before I start yelling at it. There we go. That's more like it. Okay, so we've got the tavern that you can kind of hear. It seems to be bustling, even though this is very small. And as you're walking up to it, you see a dog strolling out of the twilight. That comes up, and Tawny Bear, it actually comes straight to you and walks up to you.
I'm a druid.
Yeah, exactly. No. Comes straight up to you and sniffs your hand and looks up at you. It is a large black dog, and its ears are alert. It looks, relatively friendly. It looks to be some kind of a mixed breed of some kind. You can't quite determine. But it's a good-sized dog, and it sort of tilts its head, sniffs at you first, Tawny Bear, and then sniffs at the other characters as well. Mm-hmm. And it's just sort of looking up at you. So you could ignore it and go on, or you could stop for it. Also, you're out of focus.
I know.
Okay. Newman's Own! God damn it. Really? Really?
Nice.
Excuse me just a minute. Let me just make an adjustment.
I have to kill Tawny Bear. Hang on.
Just going to remove that. And okay, now we're good to go. All right, so Tawny Bear had a good run with us. And
everybody just got eaten by a big black dog. So this is the view in his stomach now. God. So I'll look this dog over, see if it has, like a collar or a big wooden sign around its neck that says what its name is? Or...
It does not have a sign, but it does have a leather collar, and it seems to be, as you're looking at it, it's well groomed. Like, it seems to be well taken care of. And it seems friendly enough. Although, as you're sort of watching it, it seems friendly, but it also seems to be checking you out, might be a way to explain it. Not just, oh, hi, visitors, but visitors, you know, as it sniffs around, kind of looks up. It's wagging its tail, but like not not super, super fast, like just kind of like, you know, curious.
It's kind of like a hi.
Right.
Kind of thing.
Right.
All right. I'm going to tear off a tiny piece of jerky and give it to him.
So it takes it and actually picks it up, and rather than devouring it like immediately, which you might expect, it takes it and in its mouth, and then turns and walks back towards the bridge, trots back towards the bridge.
You're welcome.
Is that a Peter Jackson cameo?
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
exactly. I'm waiting for the burp. Then I should have given him a carrot. Tawny Bear won't think much more of it. Just continue on.
Okay. So assuming the rest of you do the same, you go over the bridge and find yourself at the inn. And as you open up the inn, you notice that there are some people in here. Part of the noise might have been magnified because, as I said, this is pretty small, but it also seems very clean. It seems to be, and fairly new. In fact, the Hobbit that originally told you about all this, Robar, claimed that this inn had only been around for less than a year, and it was built by two Brandybucks, Dodie and Dindy Brandybuck, although it was Dodie Brandybuck that actually sent you to find you. And so as you enter the inn, you can see a few people inside. At one table, there are a trio of people that you recognize immediately, not specifically who they are, Tawny Bear, but you recognize the group because they are clearly all Bjornings. They have great tankards of ale set in front of them, and there looks like a big plate. And when I say big, I mean practically the size of the table, filled with what looks like bread surrounding a kind of maybe a sausage or something like that. But they are like piled high, and they are like, you know, going in with a will. There's got to be 50 of these, like whatever they are, sausage roll things piled up on the tray. And these, you know, huge guys are, you know, basically just lighting into it, eating. Not a lot of talking, but quite a bit of eating. They don't even really pay attention to you as you walk in. Yeah, but I mean, not even like...
Are you going to eat? Or are you going to...
Not with the mouthful. I mean, they're just like, they're focused, you know. And then at another table, you actually see a hobbit who seems to be talking to some dwarves that seem to be sitting around a table. And then there is a female hobbit in an apron who's bustling about from what looks like the bar in the back, occasionally disappears behind a door in the back wall, and then comes out again bearing trays and various things, obviously the kitchen that we're talking about. And as you enter, nobody notices you at first. They're just sort of all occupied with their various activities. And so you have a moment to decide what you want to do.
So I say, well, we're here to meet Dindy Brandybuck, so we're looking for a hobbit.
Okay, so you say, so we're looking for a hobbit. So you say that, and everyone sort of turns and looks, and then this gentleman. Let me see if I.
Buffy.
Yeah, they all turn and attack you.
Record scratch and everybody turn.
They all attack you immediately. No. All right. So.
Turn into giant black dogs that eat you just like they ate that raisin-loving Tawny Bear.
That scumbag failed grape eating. Okay. So this guy, I'm going to put this on Roll20. I mean, on OBS, so I'll give the players a chance. This guy who was standing talking to some dwarf travelers, he's got these overalls on and has a pipe, turns around as you make your statement, Robar, and looks at you and says, it's people are becoming. And he looks at Agatha, bring over some of these for the folks. And she says, I will, Brandybuck. Don't you worry about it. He says, oh, my friends. It's a great pleasure indeed. And he walks over and kind of bustles over to you and brings you to an empty table. And he says, it's a great pleasure to see members of these diverse races right here in my very inn. Never let it be said that I don't allow many people, any kind of people to be here. We're all one under a roof and with a mug of ale. That's my motto. And he looks at you and starts, he reaches out a hand, Tawny Bear, like up to you, not at all awed by your size, and immediately starts pumping your hand up and down. It's like, it's a pleasure to meet you. Bjornings are always welcome in my house. As you can see, and he points over at the Bjornings, who are about a third of the way through the sausage roll plate now. And he says, as you can see, and he says, it's a pleasure to meet you. And then before you can say anything, he turns to Robar and he says, and you, and he reaches out his hand. Now, all of you are sort of like, as he's doing this, clearly you're like this is not necessarily the most polite thing in the world, but he clearly is paying no attention to etiquette of any kind. It's like, it's a pleasure to meet you. I bet you're one of those rangers who comes out of the wild. It's always a pleasure to meet the long folk, as I call them. Not that necessarily you have to be long. I mean, short people are also welcome here. And he sort of smiles at you, Inga. Of course, you'll always be taller than me. Isn't that right, Agatha? And he sort of, laughs and looks over at her. At this, there's the sound of two, he said, Dad! And running out of the kitchen are these two little hobbit children that go running around. He's like, oh, yeah. And they sort of run around him in circles, and literally he almost turns around like a top, and then they rush out of the front door. And as they leave, like, well after the door is closed, he looks at them, he looks at the door, and he's like, well, I need you back in here soon. It's getting dark, like well before they could possibly have heard him, or anything like that.
We're not going to save them if they run away.
And he says, they'll be fine. They'll be fine. And Agatha says, I don't really like it with the children out there at night. And so she goes out the door to follow. And he looks back at you. He says, it'll be no problem. Anyway, it's a pleasure to have you here. And you! And he turns at last to you, Inga, and says, it is a great pleasure to have you here. We are great friends of the dwarves here. In fact, one of the people who built this inn is sitting right over there. And he points at the table where a couple of the dwarves are. And one of them, with his feet up on the table, looks at you, Inga, and sort of nods. A dwarf with a dark beard with flecks of gray, sort of nods at you and tips his cap, and then goes back to chatting with the other dwarves at the table. And he says, yes, it's a great pleasure to have all of you here. I can't think how lovely it is to have visitors. I've been actually waiting for a group of visitors to come, and I don't suppose you saw any of them on the way, did you? I sent someone to find some people to bring here about a special concern that I have.
That's
where?
us.
And then the other, and then he sort of stops. What? Oh. Wait, that you?
Yeah, your friend sent us here. He said that it was a matter of great importance and that something to do with a friend of one Bilbo Baggins.
Oh, yes, indeed. Bilbo Baggins. A particular friend of mine, sir. On that you can rely. Well, Agatha, where are those mugs? Agatha, of course, is not in there. She's out looking for the kids. He's like, where is that woman? I always need her at the right times, and she's never here. Well, perhaps the children can help. Well, and he starts going back to the kitchen, and then he says, never mind. We'll come back to them later. So, my friends, and he kind of plops down at the table. And he says, it's wonderful to have all of you here. And, yes, I do have a particular favor to ask of you all, if you'd be willing to do it. And as he sits there, the doors open, and Agatha comes back in, leading two very obviously chastened hobbit children by the hands as she goes through the door, and brings them back into the kitchen, and then comes out again. And within about a minute after that, as you're talking, she brings over several mugs to all of you. Dodie doesn't even seem to notice because he's too sort of regaled with the story. He's like, well, you see, my friends, it all begins with the making of this inn. This is my place. It's the Easterly Inn. And he looks around with a big smile on his face. I hope you like it. It's small, but it's my own. If only my dear sainted mother could see me now. A businessman. That's what she always said I would be. A businessman. And indeed I am one, but not one without a host of troubles. For you see, my friends, I have some issues and concerns to deal with. It has to do with this inn. Because you see, I started this inn on a lark, you might say. there was some wine, perhaps some beer involved. But me and my brother, oh, that's Dindy Brandybuck, by the way, me and my brother thought that we wanted to go adventuring to find places that we could have. And the truth is, well, we'd always wanted to do something that would measure up to the one who's the most famous of us. I think you know him all. His name, he leans forward dramatically, is Mr. Bilbo Baggins. And then leans back, sort of looks around. And he says, have you heard of Mr. Baggins?
I have, actually.
Of course you have, and why not? Because Bilbo Baggins,
so.
and he immediately is off again onto his conversation. And he says, Bilbo Baggins, what a wonderful lad that is. How far he went. You know, he was responsible for being part of killing a dragon.
Yeah, can we skip to the part where you tell us the problem?
Oh, certainly,
Sorry,
certainly.
it's been a long journey.
Certainly, no, never. I never want to spend more time wasting it as there is in the telling, as my dear sainted father always used to say. Oh, Dindy, Doty. He used to tell me Doty, not my brother. Oh, Doty, he used to say. It's your mouth that'll get you in trouble someday.
You're doing it again.
Oh, yeah. What? Oh, yes. Well, anyway. So when the inn was built, you see, we built it rather a little closer to Mirkwood, perhaps, than might have been strictly wise. There were all sorts of reasons for it, of course. We felt that it was the best possible location. Dindy...
Probably because the land was cheaper.
Well, that's interesting that you mention that. No one actually asked us about any land, but we figured it would be fine. I mean, what could go wrong? The dragon is dead. The battle of 5 armies has been won. Clearly, everything is okay now. Yeah, and you hear...
What do you need from us, please?
And he says, oh, yes, yes, indeed.
My friend is right.
Yeah. So he says, well, you see, my brother, he's never really been, as excited, perhaps you might say, as I am, about this wonderful inn that we have here. Who couldn't be excited about it? And he literally stands up and jumps in place and then sits back down. He's like, this inn is everything, but, well, for my brother, well, I guess he felt like it wasn't quite enough. And so, you see, and at this point, he says, before I say any more, I mean, I know you say you are who you say, but, well, don't take this the wrong way. Do you have any proof that you're the right people? I mean, I don't want anyone to do this, you know. So at this point, I'm going to let everyone know that this is kind of entering the formal, well, I don't know how formal it is, audience territory. So is there one of you who wants to take the lead? Everyone will be able to talk, but is there one who wants to sort of take the lead on chatting with Doty about his problem and giving him proof, etc.?
I mean, Robot will shoot straight at him if no one else wants to sweet talk him.
Might be wiser.
Okay.
Yeah.
I might end up strangling him mid-sentence.
and Tawny Bear would just let him go on.
Yeah, he seems like he'd be content to go on for a long time. Robar, do you want to try introducing yourselves or sort of chatting to yourselves using intelligence, like focusing on your traditions, heritages, things like that? Or do you want to go more towards the charisma, persuasion, we are who we say type of thing?
I think I want to just reason with him, like, why would anyone pretend to try and help you, because clearly no one wants to help you anyway, kind of. It's kind of the way he'd say it.
That sounds like intelligence to me.
I'm going to say there is only one question that at this point Tawny Bear feels inclined to ask, and that would be why you want this specific group of people. You don't want just anybody to do it. Why not? You know, would be Tawny Bear's only question at this point.
I rolled a 6.
Do we know what we are supposed to do yet anyway?
No, he hasn't told you anything other than he has some problem, but he hasn't told you about the problem yet. He said this is all preamble, you know. He's kind of firing up for that. Okay, I saw that 6.
Ramble.
Tawny Bear, do you want to jump in and say that before Robar starts speaking, or like did you want to articulate that, or
I was drawing breath to say it when you said, and this is where we're going to go into the thing and who wants to talk about it, because I was about to say why not.
You can do that.
Okay.
So you can
why
do that.
Not?
And he says, well, you see, I mean, I love my brother, and well, my wife claims that there's some not so wonderful folk around here that might be inclined to, well, do him some harm. I mean, I can't believe that's true. I mean, obviously, no one would want to harm two perfectly normal businessmen like ourselves, but, well, she's concerned, and if there's any chance that anything bad could happen to him, I don't want to be party to it, and so I want to know that I can trust them. I sent my lad to the Woodland Hall because I knew that the woodman could be trusted, and frankly, well, going to the elves wasn't going to be much of a chance. I didn't think my lad would survive to do it. But it's a fairly safe journey to get to Woodland Hall, and I knew if anyone could be trusted, it's them. I told him, find the people that you think as you can trust, and then send them to me, and that's what he said he would do.
Donimer's just kind of looking at all the people in the in the place.
Mm-hmm.
And then just kind of sitting back. And that's where he's kind of pulling out of the conversation, out of the active part of the conversation for a minute, and just being like, okay, so you trust these people enough to do business with them, and okay.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for the hosting, Amy.
By the way, did we get food and drink yet?
Yes, so there is drink,
Okay.
not food yet. Drink has been put in front of you.
That's enough for me.
And Inga, have you taken a drink of that, by the way, yet?
Yeah, I've been drinking that.
It's
last night. Just trying
really, really good. Really good. Like, really good. It is delicious. And, yeah.
I would say to him, do you trust your friend who you sent?
And he says, oh, well, I mean, of course I trust him. He's a good lad.
Where are the people?
And he sort of looks at you and he says, well, I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, but, I mean, you could have found the original group and killed him or something. I mean, not that I'm saying you would, you understand,
That's crazy talk. I mean, why would we want to do that just to help you? Is there a lot of people trying to help you at the moment, or are we the only ones stupid enough to come here to do it? Because I think that's probably the case.
And he says, well, I mean, stupid. I don't know that I'm not sure that I'd actually say that.
All right, desperate.
So he says, well, it's not desperation. It's a combination of, well, need, you might say. And you have the way to handle it, perhaps.
Right, so that has now been sorted, in my opinion. So, what do you need done?
Okay. So, he looks uneasy still, but he sort of launches into his tale, and he says,
Me too.
well, you see, this inn that we have here that my brother and I built was built with the largesse of that Mr. Bilbo Baggins that I've mentioned before. He's my business partner, you see, and my chief investor.
Wait, sorry, who?
And he sort of looks at you, blinking. Well, Bilbo Baggins.
Oh, okay.
Bilbo Baggins. Baggins? He seems like just absolutely like shocked and appalled.
I
Inga
shoot a
tries
wink
not
to
to
Inga.
laugh really hard. Like she almost does a spit take with the beer. when he said
Tawny
that.
just fails.
So he's like, anyway, he, you see, my brother, Dinadus, Dindy, his name is, as I said, well, he went west earlier in the year, and he was supposed to return by late summer. He was, and then he sent word a couple of months ago saying that he'd arrived, and he was gathering supplies for the long journey back east. You see, the stuff that we have here, the food and the drink, well, you might have noticed that it's, well, uncommonly good, if I do say so myself. And at this, Agatha has returned, bearing a plate of various foodstuffs, and she says, well, you've got that right, Mr. Brandybuck, and she sets it down on the table, and she says, and who's responsible for it, I'd like to know. And before he can answer, she flounces off away back towards the table of dwarves, and he says, he kind of sheepishly says, she's kind of responsible for it. She's a wonderful cook, my Agatha. It was a wonderful find, and it was not easy. But anyway, the foodstuffs, by the way, is a combination of things. There are what looks like some bread pastries. They look like kind of a flatbread almost on one side. Then there is what looks like some smoked meat and sausage. They look kind of like the sausage rolls, but not inside things. They're just by themselves. And then there are some fruits and what look like, they kind of look like beehives, like just combs, like honeycomb, basically, sitting on the plates as well. and you guys can partake of any or all or zero.
I probably will get some food in between the time he's talking
Okay.
to do something with my mouth.
What are you?
Sarcasm.
What are you getting? Which one of the things are you eating?
I get some honey.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been onto Tony Bear's honey recently, so
Yes.
about
This
I'm just
honeycomb.
stuffing my face with everything.
Okay. So the honeycomb has
Typical
got
raw
this
fashion.
dusky sweet flavor, but there's almost a little bit of smokiness to it. It reminds you kind of in an odd way of a fall morning, like waking up and smelling the oven baking in a fall morning. You're reminded of the wonderful night that you all spent in the Elven King's halls with Tawny Bear baking. It's a little bit like that. It's wonderful honey. Inga, not only is that the case, but the bread is really light and flaky and delicious, like really, really good. And these are indeed sausages. Like, these look like, I hate to say this for all pig fans, like fresh off the pig sausages. Like, these are really delicious. Everything you've had here is among the best food that you've had in years. Like, it's super good. And Tawny Bear, are you partaking of any of it? Like, are you having any, or just, you're having the apple? So yeah, and there's some fruit that I mentioned there, including some red apples, and the apple is crisp and delicious, and just everything is just dynamite food, like everywhere around. And
Like it explodes when we bite it.
yes, it's an explosion
Super
of
dangerous.
flavor. Yeah, exactly.
No, I meant like literally.
Yeah. Oh no, it actually blows up in your mouth. Yes, it's super, super good. And so as you guys are eating, he says, well, you see, the food and the drink that we have here, it's not always easy to make. And it takes some special spices and herbs and things like that we get all the way back west. Well, in some cases, all the way back towards the Shire. Well, Dindy, he's the one who knows about where to get these stores. And so he traveled away, and I got word from him a few months ago saying he was preparing for the long journey east. But since then, well, I've heard nothing. It's been 3 months now since his last contact, and, well, to be quite frank, I'm getting worried, and so is Mrs. Brandybuck. We don't know what could have happened to him, but it's not like him to be gone for this long. He should have been back in a month. Now he's gone twice as long as that. First of all, it's not good for the inn and for the food that we've got, and he sort of looks around and he says, I don't know how much longer we'll be able to provide food like this if we don't get those herbs and spices. But even more important than any herb and spice is my brother. He's a good lad, Dindy. He's quieter than me, but
I like him already.
He's a good fellow. And, you can see that Dodie is kind of tearing up as he's talking about his brother. And he says, I'm curious as to whether you might be traveling west. And if so, if you could set my mind at ease and look for signs of Dindy, if you could find him anywhere, I'd be so much grateful to you. He's a good brother, He's a good person, and I wouldn't want to see him be lost.
No.
All right. What do you think, Inga?
Well, I mean, I'd be.
Inga's at the moment has her mouth full of
That's
everything.
true. I removed some food from Inga's mouth. I'll hold these for you.
But we would need some more information on where exactly he was going, what route did he take, and what would he take, stuff like that.
And he
Plug them
says,
back in.
Thank you.
Okay, so first of all, before we continue, Robar, I need you to make another intelligence check for me, please. This is using traditions, by the way. I don't know if you have that.
Let's see.
You have no traditions.
I have no.
You have no tradition.
I do have tradition. There we go. Yeah, 20.
Nice.
Well, so, okay. So 20, carry the 1, minus a 2. Okay. So, he sort of looks back. So what do you say as you give him this because he still seems a little uneasy as he's seeing you enjoy the food. So what do you tell him, in terms of, we need to know about where Dindy went, and maybe we'll do it, but what's the...
Well,
details?
yeah, I'll say something like, I'm a trained ranger, as you so wisely noted, but I need to know at least the general vicinity in which you thought he was traveling in before we can go find him for you.
And he says, oh, yeah, well, I could certainly give you that information, but And he sort of looks around, and then he leans in. He says, "But, I need your word. If you find him, please send him back to us, or tell us where we can find him. But if you find him and he's not, how do I put this?
Alive.
Yeah." And he sort of nods. He says, "I don't know whether Mrs. Brandybuck could handle that, or my children. They love their uncle, you know. And it'd be a sore blow to all of us here. I guess if he's not alive, I want to know, but I don't want them to. Could you be, discreet?"
We understand. You have my word.
Yeah, sure.
And he leans back and he nods. He says, "All right. Well, I guess." He sort of looks at all of you, and then he nods firmly and he says, Yes, it's got to be done then. Then I can give you all the information I have." And he reaches into his, you see that he's got those overalls. He reaches into his shirt, and pulling out of this interior pocket is this folded and yellowed piece of paper. And with a great flourish, he opens one fold and then the other, and then dramatically, sort of pretending to keep it secret, but also looking around to make sure that everyone's noticing that he's trying to keep it secret first, then passes it over, Robar, to you.
I'll take it.
So this appears to be a letter. It's a very impressive-looking legal document, and it is seems to be the top of it, which is now obviously broken open, is sealed with red wax. So this was obviously a sealed paper, and it's written in this very beautiful calligraphy, really, handwriting. And it starts out with a lengthy greeting, basically talking about how wonderful it is that Dodie and Dindy are doing this thing with the inn, and how they're really the best of Hobbit kind, and how great this is. And you notice something odd, Robar, which is that next to those like margins, there's what seems like another handwriting style has underlined some words like best and circled like great and tribute to Hobbit kind. There's like in the margin, there's a little exclamation point with a circle around it with an arrow leading to that word, and things like that. Seems to have been marked up later on. And so it talks about how wonderful all these people are. And then it says that below that it says to who these bearings may to who these tidings may come, basically. And it basically says this is to give all shelter, hospitality, assistance, friendship, trust, all manner of like good favor to the bearer of this missive in thanks for friendship and continued support, and so on and so forth, and many other flourishes, rhetorical flourishes like that. And at the very end of it, it's signed in large letters, Bilbo Baggins. And so when you had a chance to read the whole thing, Dindy says, "Now, I told you that Mr. Baggins is a particular friend of mine. It's very important to me that Dindy be found. And so," and he kind of gulps and says, "I'm giving you that letter. There's 4 of them that exist. 3 of them have been given away already. One of them was addressed to none other than King Dane himself." And he looks at you dramatically, Inga. And he sort of says, "I said it.
I look impressed.
King Dane." And he sort of stops. And then he says that a little bit louder. And then he says, "Another one was to the Master of Laketown. Another one to King Bard himself." And he says, "Himself!" And it's sort of loudly, and a couple people look over at him. And he says, "Oh, sorry. And last but certainly not least, there's one that's addressed to someone you might know. We call him the Grey Pilgrim, the Grey Wanderer. His name is Gandalf the Grey." And his eyes widen. And he says, "Those 4 other letters exist, and there's only one other of them, and I've got it. And here I give it to you. If you give this letter to someone with whom you come in contact, I think you'll find things to go much smoother for you. That's my gift to you to maybe help things along." But
This is a fine gift. Thank you.
he nods and he says, "It's my pleasure. Also, I have some other thing that I can reward you, and that is I will also give you 40 silver pennies for each one of you if you're able to deliver news of my brother, or even more preferably my brother himself, hopefully alive. It'll be a lot of money, but it'll be worth it if I can get my brother back. And having him back would help us increase our profit here, too, so all of it would work out in the end. And on top of it, I'll also consider you for future employment as a personal caravan guard. And he sort of nods his head with his arms folded, like that was the most dramatic thing that he said. You know?
Robot does not like that term.
Right, like
it's a trigger for me.
Caravan guards. He says, but beyond that, I'll also give you free lodgings for you and your companions at the Easterly Inn whenever you come this way. And, of course, all the food and drink you can eat. And then he looks over at you, Inga. He's like, within reason as established by daily limits, of course. Because, like, the plate is already, like, mostly gone. You know, it's like 3/4 of it is gone.
I probably like his face ended. The moment he said like moderately.
Yeah, right. You're like, yeah, oh, yeah, exactly.
Basically, yeah.
Yes, X-Men. This is Wilderland Adventures, and it is part 2, episode 2 of Leaves and Stewed Hobbit. And then he says the other thing.
What are we eating? Stewed Hobbit.
He says it's a delicious, tastes like chicken. He says. And the last thing that I would give you, since you asked for something to help you know where my brother might have gone, is this. And he passes over another letter over to you, a piece of paper. This is not nearly as dramatic looking, though. This appears to be a letter from his brother. That's the letter that my brother sent me a few months ago. And as you read it, Robar, it basically describes how he had arrived in this village called Bree. And he had started to gather supplies and guards for his journey. And based on the date, you agree with Doty's assessment that Dindy should have arrived at the Easterly Inn if he set off within a month of writing the letter as he intended to do. But all of you know that journeys rarely go smoothly, and that Dindy might have suffered unexpected but ordinary delays. But it is
turned into a smoothie.
Right, I was going to say, it is possible that something might have happened to him, and it's dangerous to go traveling in the wild at any time, but especially dangerous now as we're moving on to autumn, and obviously when winter comes, all bets are off. Dindy also says in the letter that he was supposed to be traveling with 6 men. 6 men were going to be going with him on this journey across to the east. And so that's basically the information that is read in the letter.
Okay, so I'll show this to the group and say, sounds like he's lost somewhere along the road from Bree. The sooner we leave, the better. Winter is coming. And bad things will happen then. The road will get more dangerous.
From the table, next to him, the person says, "You know nothing, Ranger." And he sort of looks at you, and then he stands up.
Really?
And you notice.
I'm just gonna leave.
And he walks over, and you see it's the dwarf that had tipped his cap to you before, Inga. And he says, "Evening to all of you." And he says,
Evening.
And Doty says, "Ah, Friar, I was just telling him about Dindy." And Friar's like, "I heard it, Doty. You said it loud enough for the entire inn to hear." And Doty says, "Oh, well, I thought it was important to be able to communicate the significance of this event." And the dwarf's like, yes, indeed, Dindy. And he sits down. He says, "Well," and he looks at all of you, says, "It's a pleasure. My name is Friar the Dwarf." And you can see that as he sits down, all of you see that he had these overalls and this hat, but now that he's closer, you can see that he has essentially what looks like a Utila overall. Like he's got a hammer, what looks like maybe like a rudimentary wrench. Like he's got sticks in his belt and pieces of rope and like everything about him. It looks like he's carrying a toolkit, but just like on his body. And Doty says, "Friar here helped us build this inn, and he's our handyman." And Friar sort of looks at him and sort of raises an eyebrow, and Doty says, "Well, he's a handyman and also our carpenter." And Friar keeps looking at him, and then Doty sighs. "He's actually our carpenter, blacksmith, farrier, assistant bartender, woodcutter, general axeman in residence." And when he says that, you can tell that all sounds like all those words are supposed to be capitalized,
Yeah.
And Friar settles back with a satisfied nod, and he says, That's right, and I do far more than I should for you. But, well, I do it for Agatha. And also, well, for the food. And he looks at you, Inga, and he says, their food is really, really good. Like, he drops it down. And you agree. And he says, I couldn't let you go off on this adventure without giving you a little bit of extra detail. If I were you, I'd suggest you head right south to the old ford. From there, you could march due west to the high pass. That's where Dindy was going to be going through, and it's anything you bet that that's exactly where he got lost. Now, I'm scrolling down so that you guys can see in Roll20, and I'll get rid of, I'll reduce Doty Brandybuck here for a minute, so chat can see it too. Right there is the high pass that you guys can see. I'm doing this because I'm having an affair with your wife. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I'm doing this because I've always loved Agatha. Yeah. No, but if you could have an affair with her cooking, that would definitely happen.
Right.
But so this basically goes straight south. So the line that he's asking you to go, essentially, as I zoom out a bit, he's asking you to go from here, dun, 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 and then cut across, basically that way. Okay.
Okay.
But
That's already in, right.
that's kind of the suggestion that he has. So Doty hears him say that and is kind of like, oh, but that's far too long. By the time you do that, only knows what could have happened to Dindy. Now what you ought to do is do this. And what he suggests instead is that you go over and take boats down the Great River. And there are boats that go down here. And then from there, you cut over into the high pass. And he says, those things are going to go much faster, for one thing. You'll be there, well, just within a shake. And when you get there on the other side, you won't have to worry about anyone waiting in ambush for you. Speed and stealth, that's my motto. I remember a long time ago when Friar says, that's madness, Doty, and you haven't known anything about either stealth or speed for about 50 years or 50 mugs of ale per day. And he kind of glares at him and then says, you've got to take the field approach. First of all, no self-respecting dwarf wants to be stuck on that river, and he looks at you, Inga, and sort of like nods, furiously. He says, but beyond that, the best thing you could do to get into an ambush is be on a river. Where are you going to hide? Underwater? And Doty says, right, and instead you're going to walk over the fields where people actually live, and he kind of looks back at Friar, and actually live, and then jump out of the fields and attack. That's much more dangerous, and it'll take a lot longer.
All right. Listen, we don't really need your help when it comes to this. Now we know what we need to do. Now we're gonna put the plan together ourselves, okay? I mean, I'm a ranger for a reason. I don't go to, with all due respect, civilians such as yourselves for advice.
So he nods, and Friar sort of nods as well, and he says, yep. I'd be listening to a ranger for sure before I'd listen to you, Doty. And Doty sort of shakes his head. Ah, well, there's no accounting for taste, as they say in the Shire. And the easternmost province of the Shire, my inn. And he kind of smiles and looks around. He says, all right, well, you can take your own best counsel, sir. But I would ask all of you not to take long before you leave. If the time's getting on and the season's getting short, and, well, if we don't find my brother in the next few weeks, and he sort of trails off
be
and
able to at all,
right, leaves the sentence unsaid.
I
So
say it for
yeah, right. So you just say it out loud. He stops and you
die.
say that. And then he sort of is like blinks. He's like, yes, that's right. That's right. So yeah, go ahead, Donniver.
Speaking of that, you requested a modicum of discretion.
Yes, please.
Should we find, not to put too fine a point on it, his remains, what do you want us to do with them?
Do you want them jarred? Do you want them in a box? How do you want them?
So as you say all of these things like jarred, he's kind of like he winces, like in a box, and Friar
just look at the sausage on the table.
Yeah, Friar looks really uncomfortable.
I'll take the soup.
I was gonna say, do you take a sausage right then? Oh, jeez.
Back to Game of Thrones, or what are we?
Agatha sort of comes back to the very heavy silence that descended on the table, only punctuated by the chewing sounds of Robar as he's eating sort of the sausage. And she says, "Oh, well, I'm glad you're enjoying the food," and turns back around and leaves. And the friar sort of looks over at Dodie, and Dodie's like,
yeah, it's killer food.
yeah, and
Family business.
And so Dodie says, "Oh well, I suppose if you could just bring back something of his. He used to carry with him a locket. It was a picture of our dear departed mother and father. If you were to bring that back, well, it would give me a reminder of him, and it might keep Agatha from growing, well, too upset." And
Okay.
and so Friar nods, and he says, "The truth is, you might run into trouble before that. I was just talking to those dwarves over there," and he, jerks his head towards the dwarves in the table, and he says, "They just crossed over the mountains from the west, and they've got stories about goblins. It seems that orcs are creeping south once more from the fortresses under Mort Graham, and I even hear there's fires that they can see at night near Mount Gundabad." Now, you guys, if you wish, can make a history check if you want to see if you have heard of Mount Gundabad.
Mount Gundabad.
Gundabad.
not
And
Gundabad,
Inga,
is it?
Inga, you can make this check at advantage.
Ooh.
Well,
So
I've heard of
second
Mount
number, right?
Gundagud, but not.
Yes,
Gundabad.
second number.
Correct, second
A
one.
larger
Okay,
number.
then it's 18.
Okay. And Robar with a 15, and Tiny Bear can... No, you don't. I don't give a damn. so Robar's got a 15. Yeah, Robar, you have heard of this, and so has Inga. Mount Gundabad was essentially... may have many centuries before, might have been a dwarven stronghold, but it's been known as a stronghold for the goblins and the orcs for as long as anyone can remember. When the Battle of Five Armies was fought, many of the goblins that were led by Bolg from the north, the one who was the leader of the goblin armies, came from Mount Gundabad. Now, there has not been a lot heard from them in the last 5 years, because that's what happens when you wipe out, 4/5 of their force, basically, which is what happened at the Battle of Five Armies. But nonetheless, this place it has an evil reputation, let's put it that way. And so Gundabad, actually, I don't know if you can see this up here. Yeah, it's a little bit past that. Oh, but this is a perfect opportunity for me to show off the new thing that I just got yesterday from Cubicle 7, and that is the Rovanian Region Guide, which is another gorgeous book. And Mount Gundabad is... I'm going to show this on stream using the incredibly high-tech version of the camera. Where's Mount Gundabad?
That came out recently, right?
Yes, it did come out recently. I had it in PDF, but just came out. So you guys can see this. You'll see it in my webcam in a minute. So I am pointing to where the mountain is. You don't have to see it specifically, but it's up in that area. Let me know when you guys can see it. You can see it in stream now? Okay. Mm-hmm. So if you were to basically go... directly south just a little bit, just a few miles, you would get to this part in Roll20 that says Upper Vales. So basically it's just to the north and to the west of what you can see on that map. Cool. Which means it's rather closer for comfort than you would want. And yeah, so that's troubling if that rumor is true. You also know that rumors happen all the time, and so that's a concern. But he says they said that they had more to say, but then I heard you talking about Dindy, and I had to come over and see for myself. But if you want, you can talk to them for more information. Otherwise, well, I think that's all we can say about them. I'd ask you to save Dindy. He's a good lad and a lot less foolish than his brother is. He sort of looks over at Dodie, and Dodie shakes his head. Ah, you just don't like someone with a willing tongue and a willing vocabulary, my friend. And he slaps Friar on the shoulder, and Friar is like, but doesn't say anything. You do get the impression, though, that despite their sort of banter, Friar does seem to genuinely be fond of this group. You get the impression he doesn't look like he's like, I wish I could be anywhere but there. You also note, Inga, that Friar has clearly been eating very well for a while. His Utila overalls are a little, what I'm saying? They're a bit tight on his person.
Are we talking bomber levels of that, or?
Not quite that much, but this is definitely not someone who's been out traveling for a bit. This is, yeah.
A healthy looking
It's got a super skinny utility belt.
It does have to be noted, by the way, that this is a very, as I said, a very clean inn. You also notice that it seems to be very well put together. There's not, it's. In fact, if you had to guess, you would have guessed that it was a group of people, 8 or 10 maybe, that put it together instead of apparently just a couple. So if he was indeed the craftsman, Inga, you feel like he did a good job. I mean, your expertise is not wood as much as stone, but for instance, the bar itself is made of stone.
I do also do woodwork.
And both of those things are impressive. Like it's very good work in your opinion. So.
And some end papers too.
Yes, yeah, indeed. So,
I didn't understand. What did you say?
Handsome end papers.
An old commercial.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So yes. So it's another joke that only Trent and I will get. You have to be a certain age, okay? We were talking before the stream started about how old everyone was when Spore came out, and Trent and I felt worse at the end of that convo. Anyway, but
you are old.
right, exactly. Haha, age. Yeah.
Haha, you're old. Haha, Spore suck.
Exactly. So, okay. So Friar gets up, excuses himself, and heads back over to the table with the dwarves. And you're sitting there with Dodie, who is happy to keep on chatting or not. It's up to you guys what you want to do.
I doubt that last part.
Yeah, I think we got what we need.
Okay.
I would like to question the other dwarves about the stuff they saw while crossing the High Pass.
Okay. So do you want to do that by yourself, or are people going to come over and join you?
Well, I don't know. Do you guys?
I think at this point Robar's going to sit down with a map and just start kind of plotting route and probably ask for some provisions for the road.
Agatha immediately.
Lots of provisions, please.
Agatha is able to start bringing some of them over. So Inga, you're going to go over to the dwarves. I'll talk to you in a moment. Okay, so you're going to head over there. Tawny Bear and Robar, this might be a good moment for you guys to plot out, if you want to do that, the route you want to take. And then Inga will have a chance to weigh in when she comes back. But so.
So I say I'm not keen to get caught on the roads near winter, so maybe the boats would be a good idea. Because otherwise we're going to end up just like Dindy, whatever the hell his name is.
Dindy.
Doo-doo, yeah.
Hey.
So my vote would be the boats. Yeah.
I'm all against the boats.
You're not there.
I heard that.
Oh, you heard it from over there. You just heard
Here's
boats.
the
Boats. You're like, ah.
It's like when a dog hears like
Yeah,
wolves.
exactly.
Squirrel.
Triggered. Ah.
I heard the sound of one person saying boats at once, and then an eerie silence.
What do you think?
Agree.
Yeah.
I would agree. I think speed is of the essence.
I'll be right back.
We'll need to do some convincing with Inga, but at least we outvote her.
By the way, one thing that Dindy mentions to you before getting up and walking over to and joining Friar and the rest of the dwarves and Inga is that he mentions that the boats are actually, that he knows of some boats that you can get already, but that they're owned by the Bjornings. And he kind of looks over at the table and he says, he tells you that they're kind of rough and ready men, but they seem honest enough and their money's good, and that they might be interested in lending the boats, especially, he winks, if he can convince them for food. And you see now that there seems to have, while you've been talking, been a second plate added on top of the first. So like the first, it's like stacked, like the first plate's empty and there's another like plate of sausages that is disappearing quickly over at that table.
Okay. So yeah, I'll pretty well do is no, I was gonna say. In fact, I might ask around with the Beornings if they've heard anything of the roads, because they must have travelled up here as well. So yeah, I might say, how are you with your kin? They might know something about how the roads are near Gundabad.
Okay. So you get up to go over there. Tunny Bear, are you joining him or are you staying at the table?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So so you go over and you sit down with the three of them, or stand up near them, I guess. There is only one empty seat. And as you guys get there, they don't seem to take any notice of you initially. They're just, sausage, sausage, sausage.
I can appreciate that.
Yeah, roll.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, I know. Stop making me hungry. I wish I could come up with something that would have less of a metaphorical impact. I'll just need to think of that next time. You'd say, apple pie, but imagine if it was not that. Anyway, so you guys are standing by... Yeah, exactly. So you guys are standing by the table. Do you want to sit down or hail them, or what do you want to do?
I think I want to do that thing where it's like Robot's pretty awkward at talking to people. Pretty kind of blunt, but he's like, "Look, I've got someone of your race."
Look, I have a Bjorning friend.
Like, I've got a Bjorning friend,
One of my best friends is a Bjorning. Oh, God.
There's this great bit in the thick of it, which I've been watching recently. It's a political satire in the UK, and they're all politicians. You didn't say like you've got a black friend, did you? And the politician goes, "Oh no, I didn't. Well, I don't know any black people." It's like,
oh God. Oh
it's
God.
a terrible moment. Yeah, so I kind of like, "Hey guys."
You're a Bjorning. I have a Bjorning. Like, okay. And they sort of look up and one of them's like, "That's interesting," and go back to eat.
We were wondering if you we were wondering if you've heard anything about the Gundabad area and the roads into High Pass.
And the one looks back over. Another one whose name looks back over and says, "Don't want to be going there. Dangerous, especially this time of year." And the other one, who has his mouth full, says, "There's any kind of problems. Goblins.
Goblins, okay.
Lots of goblins."
Right. Okay. Well, that's all I needed to know. Thank you.
And they don't acknowledge or nod. They're still eating. You also notice, by the way, that there's about what looks like the table's pretty crowded because in addition to the plates, there's like 3 empty mugs in front of each of them. And as you're leaving, you see Agatha is coming over with like another tray of like 3 more mugs, one for each, to set down in front of them. They have not really slowed down, it appears, since you arrived. So I shouldn't have made you leave before you were ready. Did you want to leave the table or not?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's awkward enough to walk back now.
Just like walking backwards slowly.
Right, you awkwardly walk back. Okay, Inga, in the meantime, things have gone a little bit better for you over at the Dwarven table in that they invited you to sit down. And they are sort of chatting with each other about what's happening there, and they don't seem to be quite as occupied with the food, although there is some food and drink there. But they seem to be occupied with chatting. And they seem to be talking quite a bit about this problem with Mount Gundabad. And one of the dwarves says, "Something's going to have to be done about the matter. The question here is whether King Dane or someone else in the north is going to act. King Bard likes to think he's all high and mighty. Well, where's he?" And one of the other ones is like, "Bard's got his own problems. And besides, he's more interested in humans than dwarves. You ought to know that." And the third one says, "He ought not to forget it, since it was dwarves that helped him in the first place." And they seem to be discussing things with each other. They're not really involving you exactly, but they're not shutting you out, Inga. They're just sort of chatting about this stuff.
Well, for the most part, I'm just listening in, and as soon as the opportunity presents itself, I try to bring the conversation to the High Pass and the road they allegedly traveled, as Dodi said earlier. So what exactly did you see while you traveled up here?
And he says, "Well," one of them says, "Well, the truth is, I've seen more signs of late of goblins spreading their filth from place to place. A couple of empty, deserted campfires, not shut down, not closed off, not sealed and covered over the way that actual travelers would do it. Certainly not if the rangers were involved. but instead just left there, destroyed, the way the goblins do everything. And the other one says, "Bah, you're daft. It's probably just a couple of kids. You have no eye of knowing for sure." And the other one, the first one says, "You can say what you like, but the truth is that things haven't been the same here over the last year. We've grown soft, and you have too." And he sort of nods at him with, like, you know, one other mug of mead. And he says, "All these people eating and stuffing themselves when there's still real work to be done and mines to be made. The truth is, and you know it," and he points at him, "that the Misty Mountains are far away from Dale. This prosperity and brotherhood we hear about, that era is going to wither away. Soon enough, we'll have just as much doubt about them," and he jerks his head at the Bjornings, "as we do about goblins." And he kind of, you know, looks outside, and they're like, "Ah." Now, when you hear this, Inga, I'd like you to make an insight check for me, please.
Oh, 7.
Okay. So, you notice that Dindy is there, Dodie. Man, it's going to kill me. Dodie is there listening to the whole conversation and just seems to be very intently listening to their discussion about these different rumors that they hear. And finally, after a while, they return to the conversation sort of part that you wanted. And they mention that the paths themselves, although they haven't actually seen any goblins, that there are, although there's some dispute about this, signs that maybe some of them are moving closer than they thought before. And that probably the safest way is to go south through the fields, then cut across the road, and that way you can see them coming before they see you. They agree with Fryer that the river would be an incredibly stupid and dumb idea, both because it's too dangerous to escape an attack, but most of all because it's a river, and it's a big one, and that's bad. So more or less that's what they tell you.
I asked them where exactly they saw these uncovered camps, like that allegedly were made by the goblins.
And they tell you that, well, it was in the Vales, it was, as we were heading south towards the Forest Gate. And if you look up, you'll see that there's the Upper Vales over here, just to the very top of your map here. And they claim that there were basically camps there not far to the west of the river. So basically over on this side. That was as far as they saw them, was right around here, roughly speaking, where I'm pinging. Below that, they didn't see any sign. But still, that's, you know, the fact that there's open camps, if it is true, is sort of troubling. If that's actually what they are, if they are goblins,
really
etc.
Close.
Yep.
It's like 2 or 3 days marching.
A little farther than that. It's probably a
Right,
good...
the map is in miles.
Yeah. So it's farther than that.
Like 5 days.
Right,
maybe.
but still, I mean, yeah, it's like a week though, a week as opposed to, you know, a month or farther. So,
Yeah. That's,
but it's all
very
rumor.
unsettling.
Again, it's rumor. It's not, you know.
Well, I mean, I trust my fellow monks.
Indeed.
Yeah, I don't really have further questions for them, so I just like try to make good company
Okay.
until like my companions try to get me to do something else.
Okay. All right.
We say the word boat and she comes running.
Boat.
No!
So.
Right, they're still planning the thing, right?
Right. And I was
Okay,
gonna say
so
that.
never mind what I just said. I walk back over.
You
like,
book
I think
over there.
Yeah, I think the other guys.
Okay.
Go back to
I realized that I should have more. There we go. It's a little bit better. Otherwise, I had on the sleepy music and I meant to have on the tavern music. My bad.
That's why I'm getting so
Yeah,
groggy.
my bad. Sorry. I forgot that I didn't have I had the sleepy music on. Okay, so you're back over with them,
Yes.
and you can chat as you like.
Yes. So, did you find out anything new?
Well, the safest route is gonna be, how do I put this?
Don't say what I
Tony Bear
think
just
you're
kind of
gonna
kicks
say.
back and waits for this.
Water-based travel.
Inga, one quick
Via-
note. Terry, can you come up a little bit volume-wise for me? Because you're a little quieter than everybody else.
Yeah, that's the old problem with my headset.
And the music's. Oh,
Oh
there it
god, yeah, it's all the way down to 33. Okay, how about
is. That's better.
That's
yeah.
better.
now? Yeah, I have the problem that my PC automatically adjusts my microphone for some reason.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
Um,
That happened to me too. Okay, thank you guys. Thanks, chat, for the adjustment. Okay, on you go. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, as he said water base, I just go, no.
Well, listen, it's gonna be a lot quicker than going by foot. We won't get caught out in winter. We won't have to deal with potential bands of goblins that are in the area. We just get there nice and fast and safe.
Are you daft? We are like, we can, people can see us miles away if we go by the river. We have nowhere to hide if we get attacked. And my friends over there, I point at the group of dwarves, assured me that the land route is by far the safer option.
Did they?
Yes.
Well, they
Or
were all
are you
dwarves
questioning the word of a dwarf?
They're all dwarves as well, though. Let's keep that in mind.
Oh boy.
So, not to say that they can't be trusted because they're dwarves, but they also probably don't like boats.
Yeah, but they also say that that there's a good chance that there are goblins about, and
Exactly, and as everyone knows, goblins don't have boats.
exactly, and they're on the other side of the river.
Where we have to go, regardless of
Let's
whether
go
we take
anyway.
the
Yeah,
water
but
route.
if we take a boat, then they could just jump the boat from the shore.
Well, I mean, that's similar to walking on a road. I mean, at least on a boat where we can get away from them quicker. Because if we get ambushed by orcs on land, then we're trapped. If we're on a boat, we're still moving.
Inga, are we guaranteed to get attacked on our trip?
No?
Is the person we're looking for guaranteed to freeze to death if we don't get there in time?
Maybe?
I say speed is of the essence.
But I will complain the entire way.
No problem. I will
We knew
clog
that.
my ears with honeycomb and you can bitch all you want.
We knew that. It's alright, Inga.
Fine,
Good.
do what you want. I will get back to eating, and then I eat.
Then it's a
Frustration.
unanimous decision.
You notice that there is a new freshly refilled plate, Inga, that within which you're able to drown your
Yeah,
sorrows.
we've
Well,
like pushed
at least not
food
everything
away.
is terrible. At least I got food.
Because if you're afraid of going on water, make yourself as heavy as possible.
No,
It's
no.
buoyancy.
No.
She's adding fat. It's adding.
Yeah,
it's adding-
Oh.
fat floats.
Yeah,
That's what all the kids here learn.
Right. Oh man.
No,
Okay.
that's actually a thing here.
Is it really?
Because of a children's book, Pippi Longstocking, which like everybody knows, like everybody and their grandma, and like the dad of Pippi is like everybody thinks he's dead, but well he was like a pirate king or something, and everybody thinks he drowned, and she's like, no, he was fat, he couldn't have drowned, he would have floated. That's
No
like
one
her
fat
entire reasoning
drowns.
while her dad is still alive.
That's awesome. So
And he actually is still alive, and on like some tropical island running a pirate king. So.
I see. Well, that by that logic, Elvis is definitely still alive. Because if you saw
Yeah.
pictures of Elvis towards the end there, I mean, he's definitely fallen away to a ton. So all right. Well, you guys you're offered lodging, by the way, by Dodie for free. You're able to have your own room before you set out. The other question is, of course, about the boats. You don't have any yet.
Right.
So.
I need a guy with a boat. Who's got a boat?
Have I heard that one before?
Yeah, Dodie sort of indicates the table of Bjornings. We're still not paying attention.
Hey again, guys.
You walk back over to them.
Remember me? I'm the guy that has a Bjorning friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need a boat. You got a boat?
We have a boat, but there are boats.
How much does it cost to hire a boat to get down to the high pass and back?
I don't know. We could give up this boat. We need those boats to get back to land.
Is that just your voice, or are you eating?
I'm reading.
Okay,
You can
just
obviously see on your camera that I'm reading. Yes.
Okay,
So
yeah.
I need you to make a persuasion check for me, please, Robar.
Ooh, okay.
Now, I want to remind everybody, this might be a good time to remind everybody before you make the check, that if you have the chance to persuade, it is almost the end of the month. And if you are supporting the Patreon at a certain level, you can, if you wish, inspire Robar to get advantage on this check. And you can do that. I will show you, in fact, who has inspiration right now. The inspiration people are as follows. So there's the list of people who can inspire. If you're not on that list and you're like, oh man, Arv, I wish I could inspire, I have a solution for you. If you go to the Patreon and support the Patreon, you get an inspiration for use. $10 gives you 1 inspiration a month, and 20 gives you 2 that you can use to inspire one of our fine players. So I'll give Chad a 30-second window here before you take this roll, Robar.
We already played D&D once this month.
Yeah, we played with Infinity Beyond a few weeks ago.
Okay.
And we're going to be
I
playing.
was like, why do I only have one? Okay.
Yeah, that's why, because you used it, if you remember. I don't remember on what.
I used one of them.
Yeah, and we are going to get it. We are going to be playing again on Friday with the Infinity and Beyond. So there will be one more session of times to be used. But
now, aside from inspiring and whatnot, can I assist with his persuasion by
yes, I would say that you could
down onto the table.
You could well, it depends on what you're trying to do. It depends on if you're trying to intimidate, persuade, or what. But yes, you could assist. It wouldn't be giving
closer
him advantage.
To persuasion.
Okay.
Just like
if you're like, listen, if you know what's good for you, okay. So all right, you can do that.
You let me cook you something in exchange for helping us.
You'll do this now. Yes, you can do that. I will give you a chance to give him an assistance with a couple of bonus points, depending on what it is you say. So, what are you going to say?
Do you want to?
No, I want Tawny Bear.
What I'm going to say.
It's what Tawny Bear first, and then I'll get to you, Robar.
Okay.
Brethren, you know our leader.
They nod.
Has he not, since the Battle of Five Armies? And those of us who have flocked to him, taken up the charge of increased sense of generosity, altruism, and helping those in need.
And they stop. One of them stops. His ragged beard has little, bread sort of falling out of his mouth as they're kind of, and one of them says, maybe. And they sort of, and then the other one says,
I'll just kind of nudge Robar with the elbow. Like,
Right, I was going to say, they're waiting. They're like, yes, that is noted. And,
well, we are, bound adventurers sent by Bilbo Baggins. Yes, Bilbo Baggins.
And they're
I just watched from my seat with like.
Right, and Dindy, Dodie is like furiously nodding. Oh, Bill, points at the inn like branding.
And we're hoping to go there with you guys, or just take one of your boats. I'm a ranger. I can be trusted with boats. Inger over there, I point to the dwarf, is one of the most famous sailors.
Do I hear that?
Well, yeah, I assume, because you're sort of,
that I've ever seen.
I throw like a piece of bread at the back of his head.
See? Just like a true sailor.
Only a sailor would do that.
Only a sailor could do that.
And at that, Tawny Bear would kind of lean in and go, and that part could be good for a laugh.
So they sort of, All right, so now go ahead and make your persuasion check, Robar. I'll give you a +2 to this. And apparently there will not be an advantage forthcoming. Chat will not inspire you. You're on your own.
Okay, let's do this. 14.
Okay. Did that count the +2? It did not, right? Okay,
No.
so 16?
16.
So they kind of, they sort of look at you, and then one of them says, We could use a few days of rest. And they kind of drown. Yes, Freudian slip. Drown as you will. No, they drain one of their mugs, and then they say, 5 silver pieces of boat.
Oh.
Now, one of their boats probably. What?
Just the way you said that now, I've got this image in my head of one of these Bjornings looking over at Inga and just picking up his tankard and taking a sausage and going, just eating.
That's more or less how it would actually work, I think. But
I look bemused.
Yes. So 5 silver pieces per boat. Now, you don't know exactly how big these boats are, but if they're big enough to hold Bjornings, then you'd have to assume that they're decent size. So you probably wouldn't need 3. You might need 2. It kind of depends on how much you want to take with you.
Yeah, I'll ask him. How many men per boat?
And he looks up. He says, "You?" And he says, 3. "You?" He looks at you, Inga. 5. "You?" He looks at you, Tawny Bear. "Maybe 2.
All right, let's get 2 boats.
Good boats. And the other one says, "Yep, good boats.
Preferably, yes."
Yeah, that's we like those.
Quality boats." And they say, "Make sure you don't lose them."
Well, with Inga, the sailor with us, how could we?
And one of them.
Let's throw another piece of bread at.
Right. So one of them,
Classic
like with the tankard, sort of like, like over the tankard as the tankard is like going up, like it's very convinced in quotes that you're being accurate with Inga as the sailor.
I would like to make a dexterity roll.
To catch the bread?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead and do that. Acrobatics would be good. All right. You don't know. Maybe she did it really fast. No, you catch the bread. Robar,
into my mouth.
Okay. Robar, you feel as if somehow you've avoided being hit by something, although you don't know what. But suddenly
Did I tell you he was an acrobat?
Yes, it was a Spider-Man sense. I like the idea that happens and you don't break at all. You're just kind of like, so we want to thank you all.
What Tony didn't know is that the bread was poisoned.
It's a whole loaf.
That's true. Not at all, but yes.
No, it's true. Tawny doesn't know that.
That's true. That is anyone else, actually.
And he drowns in bread.
And he drowns in bread. There are worse ways to go.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, well, maybe. So, okay. All right. So you have secured these boats. They tell you where the boats basically are. They are concealed basically below these rushes and more or less buried with a light layer of dirt. About probably a day's travel from here and only a couple of hours from the river itself. So roughly like about there on your map, more or less, is where you would find it. And they tell you exactly like landmarks and like where all this stuff is.
Okay.
So you guys have to pay them 10 silver pennies total for the 2 boats. And then speaking of which, just a quick check. How are you guys doing on the money side of things?
I had 13, so I can pay for this.
Okay.
We get like 15 silver each last time.
I believe that was what I said. I don't remember though. That's why I was asking to see how much you guys had. And while we're on the subject, for chat, it is level. These guys are now level 2, by the way. They have leveled up. And while we're on the subject, I should check quickly. Inga, what are your hit points at? Your max, because you're at max and everything. So what are your level 2 now hit points?
Wait, we did get maximum hit points?
Well, I mean, you're at the not maximum like for the level. I mean, like, you know, you have higher hit point totals than you did before when you went up a level. So
now
I just
that
wondered.
you've leveled up, what are your max?
I rolled a 9 earlier, +1 for Constitution, so I got +10, so I'm now at 20.
So you should be 30. So is it 30 out of 30 hit points now, or are you 20 out of 20? What?
20 out of 20.
Huh?
20 out of 20.
Okay, so that's okay. So 20 out of 20. That's your level 2 hit points. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Robar, are you also 20 out of 20?
I am also 20 out of 20.
And Tawny Bear, are you 12 out of 12?
I'm trying to. Was my.
You might have rolled.
You
really
didn't have a great roll. I remember that.
poorly,
Yeah.
But
So yeah, 12 out of 12. I
Okay.
guess. But let Tiny Bear pay for this stuff. He's got more money than you guys seem to.
Okay.
All right.
So I have 64
I
silver
won't
pennies.
say no.
Okay, wow.
I'm gonna
Oh,
pay for
crap,
my
okay.
only watery grave.
What's up, big boss? Okay, so you hand over the 10 silver. And so you guys can head to bed or do whatever you like.
I guess we are leaving in the morning.
Yeah, I'll get a night's rest, seeing as we're going to be traveling. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna stay awake then, because I'm a bit panicked and I think I won't be able to sleep.
Ah, okay.
I get enough drink in me for sleep.
Okay, so Tawny Bear, you you and Robar, both of you guys go up to bed, I assume. Assuming Tawny Bear is joining, like going up for sleep as well.
Well,
Not the same.
Not the same bed. Yes, no, I know that's the whole different
I
campaign.
would crush him.
That's a whole different campaign. Yes, so you guys go up. Before I get back to Inga, I should say that these are they're not like Elf King level beds, but they are very comfortable, very clean. They do the job, very fluffy pillows. And the sheets, by the way, are very warm. They seem to be down blankets and sheets. So very comfortable.
Well, we're getting into fall. Okay.
Right, exactly. There's just a little bit of a chill in the air. It's not
It's supposed to hit
90
90 here today, so the idea of being warm.
No, I know. It was warm here yesterday, too. It was just like crazy. Yeah, only after a long rest is exactly right. You don't immediately jump up to that, but that max is there. That's actually like Lunar that I'm playing through right now, and it keeps driving me nuts because I'm like, level, I'm not maxed out. Damn you, realism! So, but anyway, so Tawny Bear and Robar, the beds are very comfortable. There's one bed for each of you in that room, and of course there was one bed that's empty waiting for Inga. Inga, while they are up sleeping, getting their beauty sleep, you notice something interesting as you're sort of, down there trying to occupy your time. What are you occupying your time with, Inga, by the way?
I'm just hanging out with my dwarf bros at the other table.
Okay, so they're chatting more. They're talking about Erebor. They're sort of talking about how they agree that the stonework here is pretty good, but then they're like, but not like our stonework, not like our work.
I agree furiously as a mason myself.
Yeah, they kind of like high five you and everything. But as you're doing that, at one point you notice, you might notice something. Make a perception check for me, please.
Sir,
Let's see if you notice anything.
19.
Yeah, you
So,
do.
Depending on what it is, I actually get a bonus. I don't know what you want.
It's a conversation that you see.
No, never mind.
You see Agatha and Dodie speaking in low but rather earnest tones. They're having some kind of intense conversation behind the bar. And Agatha seems to be disagreeing with Dodie. Both of them look worried. And a couple of times Dodie seems to be pointing over to the table where you are, although it's not clear that he's pointing out you. It's possible that he's pointing out the table of dwarves. But in any case, sort of pointing to you and then saying something like, blah, 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 and she's sort of like shaking her head and, and seems worried. And then finally she kind of puts her hand to her mouth, and you can see she sort of puts her head down as if she's very upset, or sad or something, and kind of quickly heads into the kitchen. And you see Dodie kind of shaking his head quietly and then leaves from behind the bar and walks out the front door of the inn. And then a minute or so after that, Agatha comes back out with more food and stuff. Doesn't seem to be, you don't notice any, she doesn't seem to be crying now, but definitely something was going on there.
She stress cooks.
Yeah, she's come up with 5 more plates.
Yeah.
So while she's setting the food down in front of us, I just lean into her and ask, "Is everything all right?"
Oh yes, everything's just fine. I hope you're able to find old Dindy. He's a good one. He is. He kind of keeps my Dodie grounded sometimes. And then she sort of shakes her head and she says, "Please do your best to find him, and take care of yourselves, will you?"
Of course. So where did Dodie go?
You asking her that, or?
Yeah.
And she says, "Oh, I don't know. Probably just out to smoke. He does that every so often."
Right.
And then and she turns and walks. And as she turns and walks away, you see Dodie come back in, actually. And he does seem to be putting his pipe back into one of his pockets of his overalls. And seems a little more well-reserved than Dodie has appeared to be to this point. And nods at you as he passes and then goes up the stairs.
Okay.
It's late, by the way, I should say, at this point, so...
Yeah, I just stay until I get tired and then
Okay. All right. So you do that, and I am now going to remove Mr. Dodie Brandybook from the picture. All right, so the next day arrives, and we will get rid of tavern music. No, really, we'll get rid of tavern music. There we go.
Promise.
I promise we'll get rid of tavern music.
That's the next quest, yes.
And
barge.
let's get the other music going. Okay, there we go. So, all right. So now, you guys, the next morning dawns, clear and chill. There's definitely a little bit of, shiver that you feel as you're stepping out. Not an unnatural shiver, just wow, it's a little cold here. Shiver. But you all feel well rested, and now you can decide which direction, however you want to head out.
All right, let's go find our boats.
Okay, so you guys are
Go
going
northeast.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and they're straight into the forest. Okay. So you guys are heading west. You're gonna do the river route, if I understand it correctly. So you're going this way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Down
I guess.
the red line, I think. That's right, Inga. We're not changing our plans now. We're going.
Inga looks up at the godlike, looks up at the heavens and is like, "No, godlike voice. I disagree with this." Okay, so
You could just be a Baracus her. Just boom, knock her out, put her on the boat.
that's exactly right.
Didn't they do that on the gamers and that just horribly fails?
Probably.
I don't know. I don't remember that part.
What? It's a scene where the wizard panics while they are trying to cross the river, and then I guess we're just gonna have to knock them out at each after the other. Punches him, and then the barbarian rolls a 20 or something and just kills him on the spot.
That's right. I meant to. He says something. I meant to pull my punch or something. It was an accident. Okay. So here we go, guys. It is the beginning of a journey as you guys start. So the way this works, as you guys know, is we need some roles. You need to assign roles. So the typical roles that you need are you need a guide, you need a scout, you need a hunter, and you need a lookout. Now
Roles with one L. Okay,
you need
sorry.
you need a primary for each of those, and then one of you can take on kind of a secondary role if you wish, but that's basically what we're looking for. So how do you want to subdivide?
As Wanderer, you can take 3 roles at once unless assigned otherwise.
Well, so then one of you can just do most of it by yourself.
Yeah, I don't mind either.
I think I was the guide before.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I
or
mean,
you
my
were.
character probably has traveled through here before, but this is a boat, so there
This
is
is true. What is it? East.
Oh no,
Middle
we
Wales,
first have to get to the boat, right? We're not there yet, right?
I have gone.
This journey is going to incorporate getting to the boat and the journey south. So it's
Yeah, I'm not gonna be the guide for this one.
Okay, yeah, I've been
Lookout.
through.
Yeah, I'll
them.
be the lookout since I'm so nervous.
I've gone through
It'll
the
keep
East
me awake.
Middle
in my
Vales, but not the West Middle Vales. I'm in for the West Upper Vales. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
I know stuff
some
like on
others.
the other side of the forest.
I know some of us. the rest will make up. So I can guide it.
I'll be on the
Guide
lookout.
it up.
okay.
Is there a provisioner thing? I can't remember what the role is.
Tracker or something.
Not provisioner. There is a hunter who's in charge of finding food in the wild, and that's basically using survival is what you're looking at for that. So
Yeah, I can do that.
okay. The guide is sort of generally looking at the route, rest, and supplies. The scout, his job is to sort of open new trails, set up camp. The guide is mostly wisdom and survival. Scout is mostly stealth and investigation. The guide, rather, is stealth and investigation. Let me restart. The guide is wisdom and survival. The scout is stealth and investigation. Hunter is survival. And then the lookout is mostly perception. So you're going to hunt it up, Tiny Bear, basically? Okay. All right. And there is one thing that should be noted is that the guide usually has to be doing that job. That generally has to be taken as its own thing. So you can combine other things together if you wish, but the guide can't really do other roles because the guide is a little bit overseeing other stuff. So, Robar, if you're going to be the guide, then that would suggest that Inga would be the lookout and the scout, if that's what we're doing.
That.
Okay. Just want to make sure we're clear. All right. So in that case, I need at that point to see what we've got with our difficulty levels. Yes. And all right. Let's see what we've got for difficulty. Hold on a second. Now that I know all those things, and I know your route. Now I can roll even more because you've taken the water. No, I'm just kidding. All right.
Oh, you chose the right path.
You have chosen poorly. All right.
Since it's water, you see, poorly. P-O-U. Ah, what? Oh. Laughs in the form of a question. It's funny, right? Yes?
Yes, huh? Oh, God.
Yes, it is funny.
Yeah, it is, all right? It is funny. Okay. So, okay, where is my location table?
What role are you going to take? Dermatologist. Well, you have also chosen poorly. Oh.
Oh, man. Okay.
Amazing. How many experience points does he lose?
This isn't Blades in the Dark. I don't get it. I don't get XP for making terrible jokes.
You do not pass.
No, you lose.
He gives you experience for doing terrible jokes?
Not terrible jokes, but just.
I mean, it depends on who you talk
Just
to.
The way we're role playing, if we do a lot of good role play, then we tend to get more experience for it towards the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Tawny Bear, who tends to just kind of sit around and watch everybody, would probably not get a lot of experience points from the thing. It's like everybody runs off and goes to do this fight, and he just sits back and watches this kid until the kid takes off, and then it's like, and then.
Yeah, adventuring is definitely the right occupation for him, right?
Yeah. I just sit here and mind the hearth. That's where I got my name.
Okay, now what I need from you is, guide, I need you to make an embarkation roll. So the way it works is your survival proficiency bonus plus half your wisdom bonus is what I'm looking for.
Half a wisdom bonus.
So the D12 plus your survival plus half your wisdom.
That would be 17.
Okay. Sorry. Right. Never mind. That's actually a really good roll. I was like, wait, that's not even. Wow. How about that? Okay. And then. Okay. All right. That is good stuff. That is auspicious beginnings is what that means. The company sets out upon a path that will likely show them wonders long since forgotten or into dangers that most will quail at the thought of. But things look good. As you set out on the journey, the sun is shining, the birds the birds tweet overhead, and although there is a chill in the air, it is, as I said, a natural chill, not the unnatural chill of the grave. The auspices are good to all of this. What that means is that...
Chill, dude.
Say again?
Just naturally chill, dude.
Yeah, exactly. It's just naturally chill. So good work, guide.
For whatever reason, it's not showing me what you actually... I mean, it's showing me what you rolled. Well, but... So the 1d12... What is your what is the plus 6?
So I have is my survival plus proficiency plus half my wisdom.
Okay,
score.
all right.
Right, and then I subtract the peril of the journey, which you guys don't know, but I subtract that to come up with this result.
Okay, sorry, never mind.
And so, okay. All right.
Yeah, no D20s for some of these skills. Just a bit of peril. Just a good amount.
And then?
Okay, so just a bit of peril. So the travel over to the Great River passes uneventfully. It takes a couple of days, but it is through very clear fields. The sun is with you. There is no bad weather problems or anything like that. You do see some wildlife here and there, but you have no real difficulty making your way over to that spot where the boats were allegedly hid. And again, there's a river that comes from the north and then other streams that come from the northwest that, as you can see, feed into the Great River right about here. And so the boats are, as the Bjornings had told you, are hidden exactly where they said, a couple of spaces away. Also, I do want to point out that in the places that they told you, there are 3 boats that were, of course, hidden. Now, you only paid for 2. So there's a little bit of an honor system situation here that you theoretically, I mean, you know, there's no person waiting to take a toll. You could, if you want, grab all 3 boats, but you did only pay for 2 of them. So I'm just letting you know that these
I'm
are...
not gonna sit alone in a
We've
boat.
got another
I
pint.
was going to say, so Rabar and Tawny Bear go in one, and we sending in the other.
Oh, how big are these boats, by the way?
They are pretty good size. They definitely are sort of Bjorning size. They
So
are...
they do fit a dwarf and a pony, right?
Oh yeah, you'd be able to fit a dwarf and a pony in there with no problem. They are they're not particularly narrow, so they're not barges either, but they're wide enough that they don't tip alarmingly, although still rather more than you would wish for, Inga, as you're in this thing. This is a very deep and wide river, and in fact, where's my river sound at?
I'm going to say that's why it's called the Great River, because
Give me
before
yeah.
this point, if you go upstream any further, it's the OK River and the Meh
This
River.
is the, not so much river, but this is such a good river. All right, hold on. I'm tracking down I got to track down my rushing river. Give me rushing river, not Dinotopia.
Russian River.
Russian.
River.
This is the river, comrade. No, not the sewers.
Where's Rob when you need him to do
Not windswept plains.
Vaguely Russian accent.
Probably back in Iceland again.
I need a river town. Yeah, I know, right? I know. Every time you turn around, that's where he's going. Let's see where we. Don't need that.
Why don't you go to Polaventura once? No, I'm always going back to Reykjavik.
Iceland.
I was
Going back to
in
Iceland.
Reykjavik earlier this month.
You were?
Yeah, very briefly.
Does everyone just go? What is all with these world travelers? Like, I just, went to Reykjavik. Like, what the? Really?
I don't even have a passport. Don't talk to me.
Yeah,
I was there for like
I do
never
have one of
stepped foot
those,
out of Europe,
but
so.
man.
I was there for 2 hours, and the style of all the girls had their hair just like me, like relatively short for what I'm used to, so I look quite girly there.
Really?
The beard especially.
Yeah,
There we go. That's exactly what I wanted.
It was nice. I was there in the airport. I saw much of it.
There we go. Here's my rushing river.
There we go.
Now can you fix the map on the stream, because it's like half the windows gone.
Yes. Yeah, sorry. When we move over, it makes it a little bit harder to.
Uh-huh.
All right. Where's my center window at? Center area picture.
That, and I'm trying to delay getting in the water as long as possible for the sake of
Can
just
you do other
twisting that
things
dagger.
and also stuff? And there we go. There we are. And I'll unlock the dice roller also. Okay. So now it should be fixed. Thank you for the reminder. So, okay, so you guys are able to find those boats, and when you finally get over to the river, it is significant in terms of its speed. It is rushing. Now, it's not as high as it might normally be, because we're talking about late summer, early autumn. So the spring rains and all that have already passed. It's already had a chance to absorb it. So it's just rushing at its normal thing. So you should feel good about that. It could, Inga, this could be, this is only half of what it might normally be when it was at, But as you look at it, it is about as fast as any river you can ever remember, for sure. It's kind of a little troubling how fast it is.
Well, she
but-
has probably traveled here, so she does know this river probably.
Yes, that's true.
I mean, she has traveled all over the place.
That's true. That's true. So she may recognize that area as far as having to deal with rivers and the like. I suppose that's true. Okay. So.
Probably not being on a small boat on this river. But
Right. That was the kind of thing that she saw from a distance. Might be the better way to do it. We'll sort of
this is
think
a
about
place
it that
we're
way.
not going.
Yes.
You've gone a little bit quiet again.
You can turn off in your audio device settings to automatically adjust. I turned it off a while ago, so it never screws with you. Also, Zoom has a setting which lets you
Never
change it.
does that again. It's important to put that in quotes.
Yeah.
I had to get a volume lock program, which I don't use anymore because I don't need it, but it used to be that was the only way that I could get it to make it function.
I don't see the option right
Let's see.
Okay then.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah, I'm just looking through the
Deleting
tabs.
that.
I don't.
Fuck you guys trying to look at. If you go into, like your recording, I'll send you step by step tick advice.
Well, it doesn't matter now. I can just like.
And hello, Sonic Wing.
Okay. So, hey, Sonic Wing. All right. Lovely. Okay. So you guys begin your
Fjord.
There we go. You begin your trip on the boats downwards. Now, as far as who's on where, is it true that Tawny Bear and Robar are on one boat? Like,
No.
who's in which boat?
No.
No.
As much as I love the image, that's probably not.
So who's where?
I guess I can go on a boat alone with like the packs and stuff, whilst Tony Bear looks after Inga, because I'm not very good at looking after people.
Okay. Probably you won't necessarily have room for Tawny Bear, Inga, and the horse, but if you had Robar and the horse,
Okay,
Robar and
yeah,
the pony.
that could work. Yeah.
Okay.
Just me and the horse.
And you're in the front, and then Tawny Bear and Inga are in the back boat. Is that fair to say? I mean,
Sure.
you will be able sometimes to go side by side because
And
the
now
river's
you're
pretty
muted.
wide.
Yeah, muted.
Oh, I'm muted?
Not you. No.
Inga.
Oh, okay.
Oopsie. I clicked
There we
wrong.
go.
Okay. But yeah, so you guys will be able to go side by side a lot of the times, but there may occasionally be cases where it narrows. So in those cases, I just want to be clear, that's when, Robar, you're going to move over to the front,
Yeah,
I'm assuming?
yeah,
Okay.
sure.
All
The
right.
rest of the time I'll be doing Equus.
So yeah, oh Jesus, really?
I'm just.
Family show. All right. Anyway.
Hey, Daniel, what's his name? Was in it?
I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Equus. So, all right. So you set off, and the first day of your travel into night is fairly uneventful. Now, one thing that you need to consider is that basically every day that you want to camp, the river is too fast for you to safely just, let me just like lie back in the boat and let it drift. Like that's a good way to get yourself smashed against the side of a rock or something. However, you can, if you wish, either make camp every night like in the land to the side, the east or the west of the river, or you could find a place to basically tie up the boat, and then you could lie in the boat and sleep there. It's wide enough that you can sleep in it probably fairly safely, although it'll be maybe a touch wobbly, but not too bad. But you wouldn't be able to just let it drift. So the question is what you guys want to do. Also, do you want to alternate it? Do you want to, like, some nights you go land, some nights you go sea, like river? How do you want to handle it?
Well, my horse needs to eat, so I go to the land definitely at least for a bit of time. So
Okay.
I can, like,
There are some stuff. There are
grass.
some foodstuffs that you could give your pony, by the way, just so you know. I'm just letting you know you could do that if you had to.
So how far down the river do we get the first day?
So the first day you travel pretty quickly, and let me go over and find. Hold on, as I turn to my 7th different page. Okay. So you're probably able to get to about, let's say, here on that first day. You move pretty fast. If you see where I put it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So what I'm thinking is, even though it's not a full day, not a full day's travel, stopping at each of these islands.
Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, presumably they're fairly safe.
Yeah, and by the way, they are islands, but they are pretty sizable. Like they're, the split here is like you can't see the other side of the split across this island. Like it's a pretty substantial amount of ground. So, you could definitely make camp there if you wish. And in fact, Tawny Bear, as you're sort of thinking about this, the first night, you see coming from right here, you see coming from that middle of that area, you see what looks like smoke in the distance as you approach it. This is about maybe 6, 7 o'clock, so it's not late evening. But yeah, you can. There's still some light, but the sun is setting rapidly, and it's sort of it's heading on to dusk basically, and you can see light and perhaps what might be a wisp of smoke curling from the middle of that area. You can't, as I said, it's a fairly large area, so you can't see it from here. You'd have to actually go to it if you wanted to.
Does it seem like normal? And of course, I'm pointing it out to the other two.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of waving at Robar, pointing at the smoke. Does it look like normal smoke, or does it look like smoke?
It definitely does not
form
look
like scalds in the smoke?
Yeah. Is it smoke that comes after you? Yeah.
Against
No.
the wind?
Right. Exactly. Followed by screaming and then an eerie silence. No. It does not seem like that. It seems like the smoke seems to be fairly thin, like the sort of wispy, and if you had to guess, you'd say campfire. If you had to guess, that's what it is.
Do goblins make campfires?
Mhm.
Okay.
Many people do.
Goblins
And
are
non-people.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh man. Do you want to stop here? Check it out. Why not? What could go wrong?
Anything that gets me off the boat.
Sounds unanimous then.
Okay. So you're able to pull the boats up to the side. The water is rushing pretty quickly, but you're able to pull them up fairly, not easily, but you're able to do it with a little bit of effort. Inga, you have a bit of a struggle with yours, although you have been in boats before, but you're kind of like, like as both of you guys are kind of pushing over. But you guys manage working together to be able to. I'm sorry, not Inga. She wasn't alone. I beg your pardon. It was Robar. You have a little bit of difficulty with yours. Tawny Bear and Inga working together are fine. So you guys are able to pull off eventually, and then pull the boats up onto the bank. The bank here is more rocky than sandy, by the way. And as you it's very loud from the rushing water here. So you can't hear anything, and presumably nothing could hear you pulling the boats up, which is good. The question then is whether you want to sort of stride proudly forward or, stealth your way up or what.
Stealth.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, because they could be goblins.
Okay.
And then when we see them, we'll be like, hey.
Who is stealthing?
Yeah, I would, probably.
I could too.
Trust no one.
You don't want me to stealth.
Especially not these two.
Okay. You stay here for a minute, Tawny Bear, if you don't want to sneak.
Okay,
No.
so you guys are going to?
Yeah.
All right, Tawny Bear will stay with the boats. Okay.
And the pony.
And the pony. Suddenly the pony says, "Mom!" and runs off into the... No, just kidding. God damn it. Every time...
Club the pony over the back of the
Pony
head.
drinks the river water, yes?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. The pony leaps into the middle of the water.
Someone stuck down a well.
Okay, so Robar and Inga, you guys begin to make your way in. I need both of you to make stealth checks for me, please.
Yes, sir.
It's 19. from Robot.
Also, I suggest that we don't, walk together, but, 20 meters apart or something.
No, I suggest we hold hands.
Yeah, okay.
From 20 meters apart.
We should get,
Yeah.
neon-colored fanny bags with our names on them
Right.
and stuff like that.
It's the buddy system. You're just like, Marco Polo! Across the thing. All right.
We've got these, cans of string attached to them so we can speak to each other.
At some point, the string touches a branch and you suddenly can't hear each other anymore.
Like, wait, it's broken down. Oh, man. Okay, but so Robar's got a 19. Make a stealth check for me, Inga. Yes. So Robar, you're moving like ranger style, Dunedain style, like you are one with the land. And then you hear something which sounds like, sounds like a dwarven curse, and then a click clang, off to the side. And it echoes, and Tawny Bear, you hear this as well. Click clang, and then something hits something. Inga, as you were moving, your super, super shiny armor.
My
Apparently,
armor isn't actually shiny.
Well, that's where
It's
you're wrong.
leather covered. It can't be shiny.
That's where you're wrong. He's shown up everywhere he could shine it, basically. But apparently he also added this section that as you're sort of walking along, you kind of are like, what is this? And you pull at it, and it turns out that it's like, essentially it's like a flap on your right arm that when it opens, and out from it pours what looks like some coins and some things that, like, it looks like it's a little special, like, container or like a special secret, like, hiding place that he didn't tell you about. And there also seems to be a folded up piece of paper in there.
Oh,
but all of
God,
it just
no.
hit the ground, slack, slam, bloom, you know. So now you're there, and Robar, do you keep moving? Are you
Yeah,
like,
I'm
well,
gonna stay hidden for the moment. I think. Yeah.
are you stopping and staying hidden, or moving and staying hidden?
moving?
Okay.
Yeah. As far
What,
away as possible.
Inga, are you going to stop to pick up the stuff?
Yeah, I pick up the stuff like one piece after another, and last I pick up the letter.
Okay.
I just like look at it like.
It's folded, so you don't know what it
Without
says.
opening it, no, I know what it says. So that's the problem. And just like put it back, like, okay, I'm gonna take care of this later.
Okay. So
Concentrate on the.
you close up.
mission.
You do have to say that now that you're actually looking at it, it is a very cleverly designed secret compartment. Like, not something that people would easily notice if you were ever being searched or anything like that. And so
What was the stuff anyway?
it was mostly silver pennies. And then there was what looked like a ring of some kind, like a silver ring.
Oh.
And then there was this letter.
Wrong setting. No rings.
I know, right? Silver, plain.
Yeah, until you throw it in the fire.
Then it becomes gold, and then yeah. Can I say like pewter? Like, you know, anyway that nothing.
Does the ring have like a diamond on it or something? So
Nope.
that I okay, good.
Just a plain ring.
Silver ring. How many pennies?
It looks to you about 20.
Nice. I'm rich.
I'm rich beyond my wildest dreams.
Okay, Robar, in the meantime, you're continuing to move forward, and when you get to close to the edge, there's like a little hill. Basically, this island, so to speak, is kind of, as I said, it's a decent size, and it also slopes upwards. So as you're going upwards through the grassland, you're kind of walking up, and then you are walking up, and then you come face to face with a pair of knees. And I need you at this point to make a dexterity saving throw, because you literally just walked into someone who was standing straight up looking outwards.
Not the knees. Okay, Shaking Stevens.
They used to be a scout, but they took a ranger to the end.
That's in that
Oh,
one.
terrible. Oh, God.
I meet his knees intimately.
Yeah, you meet his knees. No, did you do saving throw? No, I'll say
No.
dex check. Never mind. I'll say dex check.
It's the
It
same
should be.
roll,
It
if
should
I'm
be. It
honest.
should be dex check. So yeah. So you basically bang right into the guy, like, and like sort of fall back, and and you look down, and sort of reaching down and grabbing you by the neck, and by the scruff. Yeah, exactly, and kind of pulling you up is this very large being. That looks to be very much like a Bjorning, actually, with a shock
I've got a friend that's
a shock of red hair, and sort of pulls you up, even with his face, and says, "What are you doing here?"
I am looking for a place to rest with myself, just me.
He said, "What was that sound just now?"
That was me clanging. I do that sometimes.
And he looks down at you, and you remember that. What armor are you wearing, Robar?
Just leather.
Yeah, I
straight
was
leather.
just gonna say. So he's looking at you, and he's kind of like,
Hide armor.
his
effect.
eyebrow raises a little bit, and he's like, and he says, "You were clanging?"
I dropped my cooking pot back there.
And he says, "Is anyone else with you?"
Nope, just you. At the moment.
Okay. At this point, Inga, you have moved far enough that you can actually see over the sort of hill. You hear this sound of a conversation, and as you sort of peer up, you see Robar who is currently suspended above the ground, being held by like not by his neck, but by the scruff of his neck, basically, and is being talked to by a very large person who looks very much like a Bjorning, although not your Bjorning. And you can see that Robar seems to be chatting in quotes with this fellow.
Yeah, I try to sneak up till hearing distance.
Make another stealth check for me, please. Really hoping for a clang.
Come on! Aha!
Okay.
17.
Yeah, you are one with the ground. Like, so you're more like, so you quietly sneak up, and now as you get closer, you're able to hear. We don't really, and you hear the conversation that's going on with Robar. The Bjorning says, "I don't much like seeing people show up out of nowhere, sneaking about. Not much more. None of my companions will like it either. Now tell me why you were trying to sneak up on us. Are you thieves in the night?"
No, I thought that you might have been a goblin or something. I saw your campfire.
Do I look like a goblin?
No, but I saw a campfire and I thought, you know what? Who makes campfires? Goblins. Am I right?
You know who makes campfires? Everyone else. And he kind of looks at you.
Well, yeah, but also, more importantly in this case, goblins.
And he sort of shakes his head and he says, have you fought any of these goblins? They're not supposed to be down here.
Can't say I have, but if I just walked into campsites, then I probably would.
And he says, it sounds to me like you're trying to hide something. What if you're in league with the goblins?
What? No. Why would I be with goblins? No, that's crazy. I'm just looking after myself. You're a big fella, and so are your friends, I'd wager. So, little guys like me, we can't be too careful.
And he's...
Before he continues, because I'm just like, oh my god, he's gonna get himself killed. I just like stand up and go like,
And he sort of turns around. Now he turns around and almost throws Robar like behind him, like almost like, like this. Who are you?
Inge, daughter of Ida. Please don't kill me or my friend over there who's not very smart, and please don't listen to him too much.
Friend, I've never seen you before.
And as he sort of looks at you, and as he says that, Inga, you feel another presence. As you look over, you see 3 more of these huge dudes like appear over the hill, and one of them says, "What is it?" And this one says, "I'm not sure. 2 that are trying to pretend they don't know each other and just happen to show up at the same time." And as he's sort of holding still, of course, you, Robar, and looking at you, Inga.
I slowly go forward, still with my hands up so they can see that I don't hold a weapon. My friends, plural, like I pronounce BBS, and we were traveling down the river towards the bridge.
Why?
Because we intend to travel past the mountains.
Oh, let me show you my note.
So as you like scrabble at his hand. Okay, so he's like, and he kind of holds you at arm's length, and he's like, what do you mean a note?
I show him.
Okay. So you hand him, so if you're going to do that, then you hand him over the note. And he sort of takes it with one hand. He's still got you in his left hand. He takes it in the right hand, and he sort of looks at it suspiciously. And then with one hand, he kind of flips open the paper, and he reads it. And then he gets to the bottom of it, and he says, And he literally just drops you, Robar, like, poof, right, and turns around, paying no attention, and walks back to the other guys and says, walks back to the other 3 Bjornings and says, "Look at this." And he hands them a letter, and they all sort of, look and whisper and look back at you. So you know Bilbo Baggins, do you?
That's what that note says.
You say from the ground, like, and they say, Our master has told us to be on the lookout for those who say they are friends of hobbits and friends of Baggins. And they kind of, you can tell that he's still suspicious, but now he's kind of like, well, I have orders, So he's like, all right, tell me who else is with you, and this time, make sure it's the truth. Besides you two, who else?
Actually, one of your people. His name is Tony Bear.
Tony
He's
Bear.
back at the boats.
And
we have also Pony with us, but yes.
and he says, all right, you stay there. And he points at you, Robar, and he says, the three of you watch. I'll go with her. And so he walks off. He walks up to you, Inga, and Robar. Like the three guys surround you and just stare down at you. Like they don't. They're just sort of like they don't make any conversation. They just are like, as you're there.
Right.
They bring. So they follow you down. Tawny Bear. The first you hear is the sound of like rustling, and then you see someone appear over the hill.
Is it a monster?
It is not a monster. It's actually one of your kinsmen.
No, the song. What's that coming over the...
Oh, yes. Yeah, no, yes. But I was going to say, but it might have been a monster, but no. And you see Inga looking perhaps a little sheepish. And behind her is one of your kinsmen. And actually, Tawny Bear, you recognize this person. This is not someone whose name you remember. You are not particularly close to them, if you may remember, but you definitely remember having seen them on the edges of your lands on occasion.
Kevin Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of like that. And he looks at you and says, so someone here was telling the truth. Well, greetings, Tawny Bear.
To you as well.
And he says, are you with this? And he sort of he puts his hand inexorably on your shoulder, Inga, like this, like.
Excuse me?
Hey, Dragon.
Yes, I am with her. And one other.
He says, oh, was it that idiot with the sword back there?
Probably.
And he says, well, some of our kin are up there on camp. If you can vouch for these, well, you're welcome to join us, I suppose.
I do.
All right. And so he turns around. He lets your shoulder go, Inga, not particularly gently. And then he sort of waits for the two of you to follow. Inga, you're in front, and he sort of falls in next to you, Tawny Bear. And you guys go back up to the camp where you encounter. And again, all of these four Bjornings you actually recognize, although, as I say, you don't really know the names of them. They might have been ones that moved in later, but you definitely remembered seeing them at one point. And when they get you back to the campfire, there is a campfire there with a spit turning. There's like what looks like a roast something, possibly boar or something like that, that is sort of turning over the fire. And they have these what look like large bedrolls, or basically just, they might be bedrolls or just sheets or blankets or something that are laid out on the ground.
Or sheep. Hard to tell.
Or sheep, hard to tell. And they are there waiting, and they point to the log that seems to be empty, and they sit down heavily on the log, and they, gesture to the empty log for you.
Thank you.
Okay. And then when you sit down, they say, the first one who first picked you up, Robar, said, all right. So why exactly are a group of three and a pony making their way down the Great River? They don't seem to specify anyone in particular. Maybe Tawny
I looked
Bear.
at Tawny Bear.
I kind of glanced sideways over at Robar and all right. Didn't do so well in the first time through. I guess I'll take this one.
We are tasked with finding a missing hobbit.
And he says, a missing hobbit? You mean Bilbo Baggins?
Different hobbit.
Oh.
A brandybuck.
Oh, a brandybuck. And then one of them says, I've heard of the brandybuck. It's the one who runs that new inn. And someone says, yes, I heard about the food there. Supposedly pretty good. But if it's run by a halfling, and they all kind of nod. Oh, yes, halflings. It's not really clear what they're thinking about regarding halflings, but, and they say, all right, well, who stole this halfling of yours? Killed, eaten, gone home?
Apparently he was off to fetch supplies and has not yet returned.
That's bad. And he says, this is not a place that you want to find yourself. Where was he coming from, then?
The north, the western side of the river.
And he says, down by the high pass? That's dangerous territory.
It is.
And he sort of says, I don't suppose you need to find this one alive, do you?
That would be preferable.
Well, it's always something. They all kind of nod, like, as if basically you had just been like, well, I'd prefer it in blue instead of gold. And they're like, well, we'll see. That's kind of the attitude that they feel like they have. And they say, well, the truth is, you might have sort of safety as much as you can, but if you're going to go west, you should be aware that you're going to run into something first. And the others sort of nod at each other. There's been howling from down south. A strange howling sound it was on the wind. And from what I can tell, it's not the howling of a wolf. It seems more powerful than that. And one of the other ones says, maybe a werewolf. Could be. But this howl lasted for a long time. Chilled your bones, it did. If you go that way, there's a good chance you're going to run into whatever that is. If your hobbit found it. And he sort of shakes his head and trails off.
Question, are werewolves a thing in Lord of the Rings?
Yes, werewolves are a thing, and in fact, some of the wargs are considered to be shape-changing people or wolves. In fact, the Bjornings themselves, of course, know something about shape-changing, and you could argue that Bjorn is kind of a were-bear, even though that wouldn't be what he was classified as.
Well, shapeshifters aren't were.
No, I know, but my point is that, but he's not a doppelganger, though. I mean, we're talking about a guy who can transfer into one thing and one thing alone. And so he's called by Gandalf a skin changer, but really that's not,
But don't say that to his face.
Right, and exactly, and what he really is a werebear. Like, it basically is what he comes down to. So.
He is so adorable.
Yes.
Oh my god!
And not a curse, by the way. He can control it, right? So he has the ability to change what he wants. So, so they sort of they look at all of you and they say, "I'm not sure if the three of you, I don't know anything about you, but I don't know if the three of you could handle whatever this thing is."
River just stopped for a second and then started up again.
Well, that was dramatic effect.
I know. I was like, I don't know if the three of you can handle this.
The river's like, what?
Okay.
Would you say that it, if not a wolf, perhaps sounded more warg-like or something different?
And he sort of kind of looks around and says, it sounded unnatural. And a couple of the others sort of nod. Not someplace I'd want to find myself near. I can handle wargs and wolves and goblins. Throw them at me as much as you want, and I'll take them all down. But there's others that come from the other side of where we are, and I don't mean the river. Those creatures, that howling is the thing that frightens me.
Does that ring any bell with any of us?
You can... Yes, you can make a lore check for me or a history check. If you've got, let's see, what would be a good one for this?
I have neither.
Does anyone have any lore?
Yeah.
What do you have? What do you have, Toniger? Is it just general lore? Is there do you have a?
I have a proficiency in it.
Right, but I mean, is there a a lore in a particular place that you happen to have, or spot, or area, or group of creatures?
If I have, it's not specific.
Okay, that's fine. Then you don't. There might be something that would actually say that. You can make a history check for me. If you've got lore, you can add that bonus.
0 in history, but I'll.
Okay, you can add your lore if you like. It's actually a rushing river, not a background rain. But I have no sympathy, Pale Lord, if you're in a hammock. I mean, those
You
are
want me to
those are
just
super
roll
comfy.
lore?
Sure, yeah, you can just roll lore.
I was going to say that if history
Yeah,
is
that
0
works.
and lore is 2.
Yeah, then you can just roll lore. That's fine then.
15.
15. Terry, since you asked, you can have Inga make a history check for me. 17.
Solid bonuses.
You guys both know that there are other things that sometimes howl in unnatural ways. They sometimes are things from the land beyond. There are in this area some, not here, but closer to the Misty Mountains, there are some places that are either ruins or barrows, places where great kings were buried, where battles were fought many, many centuries before, well before the Battle of the Five Armies or anything like that. And some of those places remain haunted even to this day. They are not happy places. They are places where creatures still lurk. And if they are not necessarily evil in the traditional sense, like, the enemy, like the Dol Guldur, shadow or anything like that, they still remain threats to those that come and invade their realm as they see it. So those things sometimes can make unearthly howls that can be heard for many miles away.
For someone to hold their oaths fulfilled.
Yes, and the dead sometimes follow. Yeah. So that's what you know about that.
How far south?
And he sort of grunts and says, well, if you take the boat, probably another day and a half south of here will get you to another one of these, I suppose, islands, spots you might call them. And then another few days past that will get you to the old ford. From there you travel west, probably a good 5-6 days travel that will bring you into the eastern foothills of the Misty Mountains. Actually, no, sorry, the western foothills of the Misty Mountains. It's when you're closing in there towards those western foothills that you might start to see these things.
So exactly where we are going.
More or less. And if your friend went the same direction... Now, they're not right on the path, is the thing. And one of the other ones says, aye, the only way he would have encountered it is if he went out of his way to.
Interesting. Thanks for the heads up on that one. At least we know what we're going into now.
Well, we have been given instructions to help anyone who bears tidings or relations to Bilbo Baggins. And he sort of takes the letter and then folds it up and puts it meaningfully into his vest. And he says, however, if you are not who you say you are, this is a one-time use for you.
Well, glad we came this way now, aren't you, Inga?
How will that be verified?
And he says, I have a belief that you are who you say you are because I recognize you, Tawny Bear. But I am also under orders from Bjorn himself to not let people go by that are suspicious. I'm doing much by allowing you to pass, and I do it because I know you. But if this letter is being used for ill purposes, I don't want to take any chances that you could fool anyone else with it. You'll run into others before you get to the journey's end. And if you aren't who you say you are, I imagine they can handle you. But if I were to let you leave with this token might get you past even more people and cause more damage. If you are who you say you are, and you speak and deal honestly with people, and without any more clanging, he says, looking over towards you, Robar. Inga, you're sort of like, you don't know why he's looking at Robar, but you just sort of looks at you. Then you should do well. Honest dealings, that's what was needed here. We don't need creatures of the shadow.
Granted,
Who does?
perhaps I should rephrase my question. If you are going to take that letter from us now, we won't be able to use it in the future.
Indeed.
So it's one-time use anyway.
Right. Yes. That's the exact idea.
Perhaps I misunderstood when the letter was given to us. My perception was that we would keep it and
He shakes his head.
use it.
He
Oh.
shakes his head. I don't know what they told you. All I know is what my orders are. If you like, we could go out of the way, go over to Bjorn's house, speak to him. I'm sure, given a month or two, he can find out why you're here, and assuming that you are who you say you are, you can leave with your letter.
As
Or-
much as I approve of going back onto dry land, no, that would be a waste of time. We need to find Ilvi.
He says,
Time
but...
is of the essence.
He says, but... I'll tell you what I will do, Tiny Bear, since I know you a little bit. After this adventure of yours is over, if you pass by Bjorn's house, I will give this letter directly to him. If you go to Bjorn's house, perhaps he can be persuaded to give it back to you, if you prove to be as true as you say you are.
All right.
And then he says, but for now, you remain our guests. You are welcome to sleep here. We will, of course, guard your sleeping. Not that anything would come up here anyway, goblins or no. And the others sort of nod. And sort of looking around, you have a feeling these four Bjornings who are about Tawny Bear's size, but the guy that's talking to Tawny Bear is even a little bit larger. Like, not, just by, like, size alone, like 5 of these dudes, counting Tawny Bear, is a pretty good incentive for random goblins to stay away. So it occurs to you that you're probably likely to be pretty safe. And he says, you can leave in the morning if you so choose.
Thank you, that's very kind.
Thank you very much.
And he nods, and he says, well, good night. And with that, he just sort of turns around, walks over to his bed, and literally it almost looks like he doesn't quite topple over and start snoring, but he just sort of is like sinks down quickly, turns over. The other Bjornings go, except for one of them, do the same. One of the Bjornings stays and is looking outwards. And as it's getting darker, and he's sort of, you don't see much, except you do have this image, Robar, of his face kind of staring with these wide brown eyes staring out at the land beyond. As you're there.
Did we hide the boats before we came over?
You did not. You pulled them up on the bank so that they're not going to get, taken by the water, but you did not hide them. No.
Yeah, I would like to pull them all the way behind the trees and then hide them under branches and stuff.
You can do that. You
Just
can
in
definitely
case.
hide them under grass if you like. The grasslands are pretty high, so you can definitely take that opportunity if you wish to do that.
I wish to do that.
Okay. All right. So you are able to pull the boats up, and then you're able to leave your pony. By the way, I'm sorry. I keep forgetting the name. Something. Lilleman, that's right. I was going to say Lillehammer, and I'm like, no, that's where the Winter Olympics were. So Lilleman. So Lilleman is there and seems pretty calm, Inga, for the most part. There's plenty of grass around on which Lilleman can graze. And as you guys are ready to sort of drift off to sleep, the pony sort of looks at you and whinnies, so seems to be in, not in a...
Winks at me?
Not in a...
Winnies.
Whinnies.
Winnies.
Yeah,
Oh, okay,
whinnies.
that makes more
I
sense.
What
I
did-
was very confused.
What did you
there
think I
for a second.
said?
Wink.
Wink.
It
Oh, yeah, he
winked
winks at you, yeah. He's like, ding, yeah. He's like, I got this. Let me pony up. No.
Quality time with Robot.
Time to, yeah, exactly. I didn't mean to be saddled with this guy, but, all right. So he,
Puns tonight, amazing.
oh, man. Okay. Now, are you guys all going to sleep, or are you going to leave one of them awake for the watch? Or are you going to just let the... Because the Bjorning is clearly... That's what he's doing, obviously. Is
I'll
keeping
probably
watch.
stay up for a little bit with him.
Okay.
Yeah, I trust him. I'm gonna go.
Tiny Bear, you going to sleep? Tiny Bear's already asleep. So, okay. So, Robar, you stay up with him. The Bjorning is, as you might expect, not the greatest conversationalist.
Say terse.
Yeah, terse, which
okay.
which fits Robar, who's got a little bit of the
Yeah.
terseness going on too. But the interesting thing is, as you're sort of sitting and watching out at the land, you hear occasionally you hear him sort of with this kind of like light humming, like like it's sort of faint. You don't pick it up much. It's certainly not anything that would attract any attention, but he's just sort of humming to himself quietly. And then at one point, you've been sitting there with him for maybe about an hour or so, Robar. And then at one point you hear echoing over the land, and the Bjorning looks at you, sort of nods and looks at you.
What was that?
That's the welcome of the dead, my friend. That right there is the welcome of the dead.
What are you talking about?
And he sort of smiles and he says, at night they come. They call out to their lost ones, they say. Their lost ones that they wander the land to find. If there's any living creatures they find when they're looking, they're not particular. They'll take them instead. And with that, I think we will bring
Roll
our
initiative. No.
session. Yeah, exactly. Roll initiative. No. It is 5 minutes to 3, so we will bring our session to a close with that howl of something in the darkness.
Not creepy at all, nope.
Yeah, no, nothing creepy at all. It's fine. What could go wrong? So good stuff, guys. You guys got yourself well suited into this episode. It's going to be fun. I'm so happy we're playing again. So happy.
Yes.
So excited.
Me too.
So let me start with down below with Inga, and then I'll move up again. Thank you so much, Terry. Great job today, as always. Where will the fine peoples see you on the internets and elsewhere soon?
Well, as always, thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun. And yeah, where will you see me? I mean, I'm all over the social media stuff, like Tumblr and Twitter and Facebook and all the stuff under my name, Tarituns. And otherwise, every other Tuesday or so, I'm here on this channel at this time.
Yes, either doing Lord Tolkien or doing the Fighting Fantasy Gamebook
Yes,
illustrations.
Last Rider.
So
In this case.
yes, which
That's
is
the one we're
very
currently
exciting, and we'll be wrapping up the next time we play it. We should be finishing up with it. So I've been really enjoying that one. So you will get to see her in both those occasions. So thank you, Terry. Great job as always. And that brings us right up, of course, to our good friend Will. Will, great job today. Robar got into some shenanigans and hijinks, but it worked out really well. So it worked out in the end. So where will we see you next, sir?
Yeah, I mean, it was probably the campiest episode for Robar so far. I think it's some silly moments, but yeah, I'll be on account of roleplay, the Twitch channel. I stream here pretty much every day at this point. I even started playing a couple of video games. It was quite funny the other day, Divinity 2. But
Yeah, were you doing? I was going to say that was Divinity, right? You're playing.
Yeah. We played that with Ruti from Maze Arcana. He joined in and played with us, so that was kind of chill. But mostly we streamed D&D. And we'll be playing that later on tonight. Actually, I actually get a break today for 2 hours.
Exciting break.
In which I get to go shopping.
Nice.
I know, yeah. But then we'll be playing D&D 5e with myself, Laurelania, Josh from my channel, a ton of other people as well, who I'd remember if I was awake. But you can find us there later on. It's gonna be a good time. I'm looking forward to it, and I always enjoy coming to this game. I'm really glad we're playing again, and that internet is alive, and I'm looking forward to our new player joining us as well, and Secret.
Yes, new player and a secret coming up too. I've got a secret. It's going to be exciting, but thanks, Will. Always a pleasure. And yeah, you guys should be following and checking out Will, who is an awesome D&D DM and streamer and player and all that good stuff. So pleasure to have him back in the saddle with us. And last but certainly not least is a gentleman that you will see later this week playing D&D with us on Friday. He is a D&D extraordinaire player in addition to being a voice actor guy. So Tren, when will you be doing 6 and 20? Like what's going on with
Thursday.
You are, okay.
Yep. Thursday night we'll be doing 6 and 20 in Blades in the Dark over on Not So Speedruns channel. And then Friday back here for Infinity and Beyond with the D&D crew. And then not this coming weekend, but next weekend, for those of you in the Bay Area, which I believe is me, I will be a featured guest voice actor over at Convolution.
Hell yeah.
In San Ramon, California, along with my friend Dusty Cat, who most people know as the manliest brony in the world.
You know Dusty Cat?
Yeah, I've known him for like 25 years. Yeah,
What?
long time. Yeah, I mean, we've been friends for a long
Okay.
time. He was like, "So are you doing Convolution?" I'm like, "Yeah, I think so." And I go and look at Convolution's page, and there's my face. I'm like, "I guess I am."
Where's the website? Like where?
Convolution 2017, I think.
I'll go keep talking.
Yeah. But if you do a search for Convolution 2017, you'll find it.
Red shirts, sidekicks, and minions.
That's the one.
All right.
And so yeah, we're doing some voice acting panels over there and whatnot, and should be hopefully lots of fun and stuff.
Yeah,
And
check
then-
that out. There he is, featured guest, Trendane Sparks, voice actor, Star Citizen player, Twitch streamer. Also, they forgot to mention shape-changing druid, and and Bjorning, and
who can't shape change yet, but someday.
well, someday,
Once he
when he
finishes
grows up.
learning how to cook everything,
Yeah.
because he's got priorities. I must be able to cook everything first. Anyway, so there's that, and then hopefully super secret fun stuff upcoming, hopefully.
Very, very cool. And I'm just looking at that. Yeah, that's right. An upcoming audiobook for Ed Greenwood Group entitled Gray Shade. Hell yeah. Plus Escape Pod, everything else. Wow. Guest of honor. I've never been a guest of honor.
Neither do I.
That's exciting. Yeah. Just so as you're being brought forward, as they're like shuttling you around doing all the guest things, they're just like, so what do you think is most, what do you think is the coolest thing happening right now on the internet? You're like, well, actually, I'd say that several sessions of Dungeons and Dragons and Adventures of Middle Earth, but you can find it, just make sure to throw that in at every opportunity.
Every conversation.
Just like Dota or whatever his name was.
It's just like Dota. Oh, man, the power of Dota. Well, great job today, guys. I really am enjoying this campaign. I'm looking forward to getting your fourth player back into the mix, this super secret, etc. But really great job. I really enjoy the RP that we get to do with this, and this is going to ramp up in tension, as the first one did. This will ramp up in tension as well. But it's fun to see you guys going down the river as the river route. I like to see that, to see how you guys are conducting yourselves as we go through that. So. But good job today, and I will catch all of you wonderful people. I'll see Tren on Friday. I'll see Terry in various places, and I'll see the rest of you guys here and there on the internet. And of course, we'll be back here next month for our sessions in here. So thanks, guys.
Thank you for having us. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Save chat. Some love for the players. Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.
Ciao.
Okay. Cool beans. All right, guys. So that was fun times. That was good times. I was wearing my They Call Me Dice Whisperer shirt, so I was trying to help out my team as I did that. As for me, I am going to be in an hour over at GOG. I'm going to be playing. Thank you, Game Breakers. I really enjoy this system. And again, I'm going to give them a pop. This book just came out. Oh my God, is it bright? There we go. The Rovanian Region Guide. Absolutely gorgeous book. I was reading some of this last night, and it's funny because I was reading it last night, and I was reading about Mount Gundabad. So it happened to be just at the right time, but this is another gorgeous book from Cubicle 7. I highly recommend this system. I noticed before someone was asking about the system, and this is basically Adventures in Middle-earth is Tolkien with 5th edition rules. And I love the 5th edition rules, but there's some additions to it. The journeys rule, the audiences rule. There's some other benefits to it that I really enjoy. So it's been a lot of fun to do that. So I really enjoy it, and we play a lot of D&D in this channel as well. So you should check that out here because it is my favorite game for a reason, because sessions like this. But now I'm going to go get a break, get some food, and then at 4 o'clock I'm going to be over at GOG continuing Star Trek Judgment Rights as I continue my playthrough of that game, which I am enjoying a lot on my Pen and Pixels show. Then I will be back at you guys on Friday with D&D with the Infinity and Beyond crew. That's kind of the flagship campaign. That's the one that's been running the longest on this channel. With a full crew of 6, we will have our full player complement in play, and that's going to be a good session. There's some surprises due for the guys, so definitely stop by to that. And if you haven't done so already, Please consider following the channel. There have been a number of follows today, so thank you guys for that. Please follow the channel. Please support the channel by checking out the YouTube with !RFTube, Steam group with !Steam group, Discord with !Discord. Please check out the Patreon right there, which gives you inspiration that you can use for the players. Also gets you an epic poem or character background written by yours truly. Also gets you copies of my band's albums and a whole bunch of things, different things you can get depending on the tier you support at. And it gets the channel different places as well, so it really does help support the channel and make it possible for me to do things like give the channel different art and stuff like that. So please support if you can. And also, of course, that button right above the window right now, that purple button, is the sub button. During September, all of the subs, all first-time subs, are half off. So if you thought this guy's kind of cool and I'd like to support him, and you want to get some of these cool, awesome emotes, all of my where are all of my subscribers at? If you guys can put that in, you get this at the lowest level, which is $4.99, which means $2.50, or you can get this at $9.99, which is about $5, or you can get this, the Gold So Good, which you can get at $12.50 instead of $25, which is what it would normally be. So those are all Twitch-wide, and you get those if you're a first-time sub at half off, thanks to Twitch. So please consider doing that, because that also supports the channel as well. And thank you guys so much to everyone who came to watch. It was a pleasure. No raid today because hopefully you guys are all going to be going over to GOG in about 55 minutes to join me over there for some fun and good times with Star Trek. Which Star Trek Discovery just came out. This is a good time to check that out as well. So I want to thank everybody who made this an awesome game today. Thank you to, I'm going to exit the game so I get rid of the rushing river. I love the rushing river, but really. Thank you to, of course, my wonderful mods. Thank you to Dragon Spear, Shattermage, and Demiser. Thank you to my wonderful subs, Dragon Spear and Shattermage, also X5 and Nonstop. Thanks, guys. Thank you to X5 for the introduction as well. Thank you to Outlier, Axeman, Ayami, Big Boss, Dango Sango. Thank you to Denergy. I don't think I've seen you in here, Denergy. I hope you like what you saw and heard and will consider following and supporting the channel. Thank you to Divinorium. Thank you to Drakensberger. Thank you to ECAG. Thank you, of course, to Will from Encounter Roleplay. Great job again tonight, Will. Thank you to Epidemic, as always. Thank you, who's a Patreon supporter as well. Thank you to Game Breakers for the host and the support. I appreciate it. Thank you to Grimjack. Thank you to Hiko, Imperator Penguin, PKD Fan, Rand Eskalov. Thank you to Shadzar. Thank you to Sonic Wing, Terry Tunes, and Trendane. Terry and Trendane, thank you guys so much. Great playing tonight, guys. Thank you to Trouden, and thank you to Uncle Elias, as always. Pleasure to have you here. And yes, it just ended. Yeah, sorry, Shadzar. We're closing up shop, but I will be back at 4 o'clock over at GOG for some Star Trek. Until then, thanks, everybody. You guys the best, and I will catch all of you wonderful people either at GOG or Friday back on this channel for Dungeons & Dragons with the Infinity and Beyond crew. There's going to be a big session on Friday, so don't miss it. If you want to see more of this scenario, by the way, check out YouTube, where you can check out past broadcasts of this particular campaign, and please spread the word. The more people in here that we get, the more awesome everything gets as more people join in. So thank you guys so much for being here. Much love. And I noticed you resubbed. It's gonna be late. Oh, thanks for the resub, Shatter. God damn it! It's because it's not me, man. It's the alert comes in way too late, so it's probably gonna show up in about 5 minutes after everyone stops. So thank you, Shatter, so much for the resub. Thank you so much, guys, for the resubs. Thank you so much for the support, and you guys the best viewers on Twitch, as I've said many times. But that's it for me. I'm gonna head on out of here, and I will see all of you wonderful people on over at GOG at 4 o'clock. Until then, thanks everybody. You're the best, and I will catch all of you wonderful people soon. Until then, be good to each other. Have a good day.